So first of all, I'd like to welcome all the new counselors and welcome you all to the Fine Arts Building. This is our only meeting here. As tradition, every December we have our meeting in the Fine Arts Building. My apologies, we've never had this many counselors, so, but that's good. That's good. Representation is good. The only thing is that it can get a little bit cramped. So I promise you that all our future meetings will be held in much bigger spaces. Oh, perfect. Okay. That being said, so since we have new counselors, sometimes older counselors also need a refresher. I'm just going to go over my little beginning of the year spiel. I know I sent out an email to all the new counselors. For meetings, just let you know they are filmed, and sometimes the student media is taking pictures. So if you specifically don't want to be in any pictures that could show up in the link in the Concordian, please let me know or let the media know. I'll remind you at the beginning of every meeting, and you can just raise your hand and say, I don't want to be in any pictures, and they'll respect that. So beyond that, like I said, welcome to council. So I just want to impart upon you the seriousness of being a counselor, first of all. So you're not just a student representative, you're part of a board of directors that is incorporated provincially. So you're on the board of a registered corporation. We do here deal with doling out sums of money. So just a reminder, we're not playing in monopoly money, that's students' tuition. So every decision that you make, you're representing not only yourself on the board, but you're representing your faculty and the students, and you're the ones who make the decision about what happens with students' tuition money. So please keep that in mind for every decision, every vote that you take. Secondly, and most importantly actually, at the CSU, we deal with respect. So what that means, like I said in the email I sent around, when we address each other with gender neutral pronouns. All the minutes are gender neutral as well. The person with the speaking rights, so if your placard's up and I call on you, you have the floor. You're the only one speaking, nobody else is speaking, everybody else is listening. I know it's kind of common sense, but sometimes we all need a refresher on it. Beyond that, when we speak to each other, we speak with respect. I respect you, you respect me, and you respect your peers as well. So that means that criticism is always good. It keeps everyone accountable. Personal attacks are bad. So no insult, no ad hominems, no discrimination. I will shut that down very, very quickly. So if you want to address somebody, you address them in the third person. So if you've ever seen CPAC or anything like that on TV, they always say, Mr. Speaker or Mrs. Speaker. You don't have to do that to me. You don't have to call me Mrs. Chair, but when you speak about your colleagues, you can say, they did this or they did that. I have a question for Counselor so-and-so, Counselor X. You don't say, I have a question for you, you did this. We don't use the word you. It's not acceptable here, and it's not just a student union thing, it's parliamentary procedure. So there's a reason that we do that. Is that it makes things less personal. When you're speaking, you're not attacking somebody, you're making a point to your fellow members on the board or to the executive. If you start with the yous, I'll call you out on it. So please be aware of that. Sometimes I know it'll slip up, so you'll say, how much did this cost? Someone will answer, and I won't call you on it. But if things start to get heated, I will step in. Beyond that, I know that there's a lot of new people around the table as well, so don't be afraid to ask questions. I know that not everyone, since you're new, got the Robert's Rules of Order training. Don't let that stop you from asking questions if you don't understand something. If you need something explained to you, you can just say point of order, raise your placard, and I'll explain it to you. If you want to make a motion but you don't know how, you can just raise your placard. Just don't let it be a hindrance to making a point at council meetings. Beyond that, council communications, we do have a Facebook group, so everyone, I've tried to add a couple of you, some of you I couldn't find, so if you haven't been added to the group, you can either find myself or Omar, we're the two admins in the group, and we will add you to the group. And also, everyone received my emails. Is anyone missing CSU emails? Perfect, because that was an issue at the beginning of the year, but we've resolved all our IT issues, so that should never come back. And that being said, once again, for the third time, welcome to council, and the roll call sheet is going around. So always remember to sign in or else you won't be marked present. After 3 absences, you're out. Your absences can get excused by a motion of council. So I think I went through everything quite quickly. Like I said, any questions, just direct them my way. All right, so with that being said, before we begin, are there any questions? Okay. So with that, we are on point 3 of the agenda, which is approval. Sorry, we're still on roll call. I had some excusals to mention. So I got requests for excusals from councillors Khadija, Charlotte, and Alianor, and Devin as well. Alianor has a training course tonight. Charlotte is gone since her exams are finished. And the other 2 are for personal reasons, or other 3, sorry, including Devin. Yes.
I have to excuse the councillors in the executive.
Okay, do we have a second, Patrick? Is there any discussion to be had on excusals? Yes, Rory?
So councillors who are not here but have not submitted an excusal, just going to not mention it?
Yes. The thing is that if you want to be excused, you have to let me know. If not, I just assume you're taking one of your absences. So please don't tell me 3 meetings later you forgot to let me know, because, yeah. Yes?
I don't understand.
If you want to be excused from a meeting, so if you don't want your absence to count, just send me an email. For councillors who are absent but didn't send me anything, I just presume that they're, like, everyone has 2 allotted absences. I just presume they're taking an absence.
Freebies.
So, yeah, everyone has 2 free absences. Just letting you know. Okay, so we have a motion to excuse. Is everyone okay on the motion? All right, so all those in favor, please raise your placards. 17, all those opposed? 0, and any abstentions? 0. So that carries. And if there's nothing further on roll call or excusals, we're on approval of the agenda. So all motions submitted to me before Friday make it to the agenda. Anything else, even if you submitted it to me and I sent out your docs, you have to bring it up here. So any additions, subtractions, amendments to the agenda, please speak now. Veronica.
Yes, I would like to add CCSL to appointments.
Okay. I'll put it after finance coordinator. So, okay. Yes, Awatip.
So it's a question before I make a point. So for the consent agenda, if you want to talk about an executive report, we'll have to pull that up, right?
Yep, you just say I want to pull the XTA
Yeah,
report.
I'd like to pull out the internal and clubs coordinator report, please.
Okay. Alright, moving along. Omar, I thought I saw your
Yeah, I'd like to have add archives agreement,
Okay.
substantive, new business.
Good. Okay, moving along. Awatip, sorry, you should have gotten a second one. Yep.
It's okay. I'd like to add clubs to new business informational, please.
Okay. Anything else?
Oh, and yeah, email sent to Louise
Okay.
as a discussion point because she might not be here for the rest.
Any informational?
Yep.
Alright, moving along. Sophie.
I'd like to add new business informational election.
Okay. So that will be point I. The amended agenda, I'll send that out. You said informational?
Yeah.
Oh, informational, sorry. So that will be D. Okay. Yeah, Omar?
Just a quick announcement, if anyone who's not in the group, I can add them right now so they can access the new agenda.
Thank you very much.
So, can you just let them know?
Yeah. So if anyone's on the Facebook group, if you can find Omar on Facebook, he will add you right away. Yes, Layla?
Guys, interim finance coordinator pay on to substantive.
Okay. All right, moving along, is there anything else to be added to the agenda? I know Devin has 2 points. Yeah, Layla?
I think soccer presentation
Yeah.
needs to be added.
And waste not, want not.
Right, yes.
Which will be in presentations because Corollis has graced us with their presence.
Does Devin has a motion attached with it? Did she send it?
Yeah,
point of
information.
Yes, question?
Yeah, there is a waste not, want not motion. Doesn't that have to be added to the substantive?
No, it's the way the agenda is organized is just for like it's just to help us organize the meeting. So if there's a presentation with a motion, it's fine that we deal with it in presentations. It's just so that things don't pop up everywhere and we get all thrown off. All right, is there anything else to be added? Can somebody just confirm that they're presenting 7A living wage?
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. GH. All right, so if you give me 2 seconds, I will PDF this and upload it to the group so everyone knows where we are. So the agenda has been added to the group. Just let everyone know, I'll try to narrate a little bit more during this meeting since I know there's people that are new. When you see something that says consent agenda, it means that when the agenda is approved, we approve all items under consent, which means all the reports, we accept them. If there's any motions in them, we pass them through. So it's more a procedural thing. We don't need to review it at council. Is there anything else to be added to the agenda or amended? Okay, oh yes, sorry, Asma.
Was my report out today?
It should have been sent out. It would be under executive reports. Yes, I would say.
Yeah, the internal clubs coordinator report was supposed to go into informational, not substantive.
Oh, my apologies. It actually, if it's taken out, it should be under substantive because you have to move to approve it. So the only motion is to approve, and then if you want to discuss anything,
Okay,
that's
cool.
fine. So, all right. So if there's nothing further, I'll just need a motion to approve the agenda and all items under consent. Yes, Patrick? Thank you very much. Do we have a second? Charlotte, sorry, Kemi. All right, so all those in favor of approving the agenda, please raise your placards. 18, all those opposed? 0, and any abstentions? 1. All right, so that carries. And with that, we are on waste not, oh yes, sorry, Tiffany?
Sorry, the second presentation wasn't added to the presentation, it was added to new business.
I have waste not one, not as a presentation. Oh, both should be presentation. Okay, can we just all accept that we'll deal with the CUCCR under presentation? Perfect. All right, so we'll put that as 5B. Okay, so with that, I'll give the floor to Carolus.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to present to you today. My name is Kiro, and I would like to talk to you about the Waste Not One Not Commons collaboration. One of our volunteers made a video for our collaboration, and it's just very good that I cannot wait to show it to more and more people, so I'm just going to start with it. Hopefully it works.
Concordia University, where each day over 50,000 students, faculty, and staff go about their daily lives without knowing the answer to one big question. What happens to all of our garbage? Over the academic year of 2014 and 2015, Concordia's custodial services picked up 340 tons of waste for the landfill. Of that, 50% was organic, which means that once it gets to the landfill, nearly half of all that garbage that gets compacted will begin to slowly rot. Cut off from oxygen, landfill rot releases methane into the air and toxic leachate into the ground. And that's just from 1 year at one school. This is a cultural problem, and that means that every single person needs to get involved to help fix it. Yes, even you. From ditching single-use commodities to being aware of the packaging around the things that we buy, there are a lot of small ways each of us can change our lifestyle to help reduce waste. When you do find yourself having to throw something away, inspect it. If it's any kind of food waste, or soiled paper and untreated wood, or compostable plastic marked with a 7 symbol, then put it in one of the orange bins generally located in the atrium of every building. The organic waste that gets collected then gets sent to a composting facility, where it gets mixed with other organics in an oxygen-rich environment. This allows the decomposition to produce CO2 instead of methane, and nutrient-rich fertilizer instead of leachate. This is the kind of closed-loop recycling program Mother Nature intended, much like an animal that dies in the woods and feeds other plants and animals with its body. Since 2015, over 40 tons of waste has been redirected from the landfill to compost each year thanks to our efforts. But that's still only 10% of total waste, and we lose 13% of our compost savings by shipping everything 140 kilometers to Ontario, where the facilities we depend on are.
That's why we need you.
Help us reach our goals of reinstating local composting, redirecting 100% of organic waste to compost, and influencing the reduction of overall waste at Concordia University. You can do so by volunteering with our program, or learning more at concordiacompost.ca, and spreading the good word about waste management on social media.
Every person counts when it comes to cultural change.
So remember, waste not, want not, compost.
All right, so how many people here know what a rocking unicorn is? It's a little toy where you put your kid on and it rocks back and forth, but it doesn't actually go anywhere. It's a lot of movement, but no progress. So today's presentation has a few goals in mind, the very first of which is to demonstrate this is not a rocking unicorn. All right, so here is a waste audit at Concordia a couple of years ago, and the relevant line today is the last one, where you see that more than 74% of compostable waste at Concordia actually goes to landfill. What does that mean? That more than half of what Concordia sends to landfill could be composted instead. So compost should become priority 1 at Concordia. The second piece of information is that Concordia composts out of province. So we ship the organics that we collect here to a facility in Ontario about 90 minutes away from here. It's 140 kilometers away. What that boils down to is that more than 13% of what Concordia saves in terms of greenhouse gas emission by composting gets re-emitted back again just because of the shipping involved in the process. To give you an idea, the investments in on-site composting or local composting is not unheard of unicorn fairy tales for universities. So I'm going to talk about the University of Sherbrooke, a neighboring university in Quebec. They divert 80% of their waste. They have compost bins everywhere that matters, and they operate their own composter. So I reached out to them and asked them, well, how much did they compost on-site over the past few years? And you can see here that the amount they compost on-site increases consistently year over year over year. Now, so you don't have the technology to compost things like biodegradable plastic or compostable plastic. So they send that to an offsite facility called NS3, 14 minutes away from Sherbrooke campus. That's 10 kilometers away. All right, so I'm going to get to the chase. There should be animation here. So this has a number of compost bins that's being picked up at Concordia months over months. And in black here is the year prior to the collaboration started. So on average, we used to pick about 100 compost bins every month at Concordia, and it varies depending on how much activities there are. So in December, everyone goes away, so it dips. Our collaboration started on the ground in September 2016, which you see in red. And ever since we started, there's a 60% improvement, 6% increase in how much organics Concordia collects. That's sustained for the entire year we have been on. So what is a collaboration? The collaboration is between students, faculty, administration, and staff. So the entire Concordia community, which is really the only way it's going to work. The deal is that students and faculty run an education campaign to inform people how to compost and where to compost. And administration and staff would improve the infrastructure. That means making compost bins more widespread and more on-site composting for local composting as well. And in the second year, we've actually merged with Sustainability Ambassador programs that HNS has started, and they manage the entirety of the student volunteer aspect of the collaboration. In terms of funding, we have won the Big Hairy Idea competition 2 years ago, and it was a $35,000 grant over 2 years. So this finishes around winter of this year. And it's important to note this is only to pay for education. So infrastructure investments come from the service sector. So what has been done so far? In terms of infrastructure, particularly bins, before the collaboration started, there were only 9 public locations that had compost bins at Concordia. In September 2016, which is when we started, there were 27 locations that had compost bins. September of this year, there are about 45 public locations. And in January, in next month, there will be 13 new compost bins available. I don't have the list of locations yet, so I can't really show them, but it should be about 75 compost bins next January. For on-site composting, there was a public consultation sometime at the end of last year, and Concordia actually bought 2 small composters, one in the MP building behind the MP building in Campus Bodagia, and one in City Farm School in Leola. And essentially, some of the organics that get composted, that get collected in the MB building, get dropped off in campus potager, where they compost it and make their own fertilizers that they use to grow food in there. It's a pretty good model. The problem is that the scale we're talking about is minuscule. So the impact of how much Concordia ships out of the province is negligible. For education, we had a social media campaign where we had the entire senior administration participating and supporting us, all 4 faculty, the graduate studies, the dean students, all student association, all umbrella student associations at least, and groups, professors, staff, students. We also wanted to be in as many places for as much time as possible. So essentially, we collaborated with orientation events that are organized by student association or by the university. As the idea is that we asked them to make sure there are compost bins in the events where they serve food, and we sent them to volunteers to stand next to the compost bins to help participants and the organizers learn how to sort out their trash. So we have been in Student Success Center, Best Class School event, GSA, ECA, FAST events. Have been everywhere, and this is something that we would like to continue collaborating on with all student associations that are represented here. CSU have their own waste busters team, so they don't really need us, but all of you, we can always collaborate. It's as simple as sending us an email at lovecompost@concordia.ca or in our website, concordiacompost.ca. There's a form there where you can request volunteers. Just tell us when and where your event is, and we'll be happy to oblige. I also think that the process to get compost beds at Concordia should be automated. So when you organize an event and you have food in there, you have to provide a food waiver. It's for safety, it's part of policy, it's part of procedure. It should also be part of policy and part of procedure that if you have food in your event, you automatically get a compost bin and a sign that explains how it works. Those policies and procedures reflect our values, and the message should be that here at Concordia we compost. And this is going to require a lot of advocacy, not just from me, but hopefully from you as well. We also had our own food festival that was essentially a few days spread over the first 2 weeks of classes, and we have about 1,500 people per day participating with us. That's based on the amount of food we have. I was fully catered by our very own hive, and popcorn was donated by a local farm, and it was cooked by coconut oil from a fig lab. And we had booths to showcase the different initiatives on campus, like whether it's student-led, like Greenhouse or Dish Project, or faculty, professor-led, like the Perform Center, or community organizations like FKT. Here's a little video from one of those events.
We're here for the Waste Not Want Not campaign that was done in Student Concordia. So we're just trying to bring word to the student body about composting and where it's accessible here on campus. Well, we're setting up a table, trying to get people who are walking outside to stop and talk to us. You know what composting is? So we're bribing them with food a little bit, but basically what we're talking about is what compost initiatives exist on campus already, and how they personally, as students on this campus, need to be involved. We send 340 tons of waste every year to landfill, and half of that is organic.
This is a compost bin, and what goes into this bin is all food waste and soiled paper. Metals, plastics, coffee cups, glass, styrofoam, liquids don't go into this bin, because otherwise we're contaminating this bin, and that's not good for compost.
As a university also we have an influence over the city, so if we as Concordians start being really gung-ho about this kind of stuff, we're going to ripple out across Montreal and then the bigger community.
So you see, the idea is really we have tables in atrium or outside. In this case, it was in Loyola, where people on their way to class would stop and pick up an apple or pick up a brownie, and our volunteers would tell them, you see this compost bin over there, it's new, it will always be here, this is how you use it, just roll the apple we just picked up. The whole thing takes 30 seconds. I just realized I opened an older version of the presentation, so I'm just going to take 1 second to open the proper one. It's the same thing, it just addresses the motion. Okay, so we also had a bunch of many different kinds of signs. So we had a tunnel banner, we had pull-up banners in multiple buildings. And we also had signs that staff, including security, would put on their desks so that when they interact with students or their colleagues, the composting message gets across. We had made use of the digital screen signs, so we made a few people very famous, including Anna, who sits over there. And also volunteers have been really beating hard at this campaign. In the first year, we had over 62 students signing up to volunteer with us. In the second year, we have over 110 due to our merger with Student Sustainability Ambassador Program. In our training, we partnered with Sucker, who would come to our trainings and provide us some of the art supplies that diverted from landfill. And our volunteers at the end would have an activity to make signs that we would use. Over 47 staff signed up to volunteer with us with signs or many other ways as well. About 20 professors gave class presentations so that they can use this role model status that they have and help students learn how to become more sustainable, how to compost on campus. You can sign up yourself. You can just give me your email and I'll reach out to you. We have one volunteer who's already at council, Jonathan. But really the bottom line here is that Concordia is a 50,000 member community. Much of what we do can be like adding a drop to a bucket of water. And the trick here is for this drop to be like a drop of ink that changes the color of the water. So to me, as I mentioned, our funding finishes at the end of winter, and we need to find ways to sustain the collaboration in many different ways. And some of it is we have to integrate it into policies and procedures that can live beyond Waste Not and beyond any student graduating. So GSA and ASFA have recently passed sustainability policy, and I feel like this is something that we should advocate for so that all umbrella associations do the same. Not only student association, but also all faculties. I know the fine arts faculty is already working on their own sustainability policy, and I hope all other faculties do the same as well. There is an operation aspect to it, there's a curriculum aspect to it. We should be able to teach all our students to develop the sustainability mindset. Also through our Merging with Sustainability Ambassador Program is an institutionalized program so that all our student volunteer aspect of the collaboration can live in the Sustainability Ambassador Program even if Waste Not disappears tomorrow. So that when you have an event and you have food, you can reach out to them and you ask them for volunteers and they should be able to help you. And also we should automate the process to get compost bins. This is, again, it's part of our policy and part of procedures. They should reflect the value. And not only automating the process to get compost bins, but also automating the process to get volunteers in events. So through the Office of Dean of Students, we have spoken to find ways to automate this entire thing. So they have already been automating the way to get compost bins in orientation and Fresh, and he has agreed to include also reaching out to Sustainability Ambassador Program to make sure there are volunteers in those events without having me chasing people. I'm going to be done in 2 minutes, I promise. But also we feel like the events and the social media and the communication and the science should be maintained for about 2-3 more years so that we continue building on that progress. Even though there's 60% increase, we have been at 20%. We only compost about 20% before of what can be composted. 60% increase is not, in the grand scheme of things, enough. So we feel like this collaboration should maintain for a few more years. And this is why I'm here. Essentially, what our budget that we estimate is about $15,000 a year for the next 3 years, and we would like to maintain the collaborative nature of the project. So we're proposing to have that and matching funding between CSU and the services sector, HNS, so that both the students and administration would have a stake on this collaboration. Also LSRC, which is our faculty or professors, collaborators, have agreed to continue the current level of support that they have with us for the next 3 years, and they have been helping us a lot with logistics, communication, professor recruitment, and so on. So there are no conclusions because we're not done, and we really need your help to continue moving forward and continue progressing. So that's it. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. You don't have to clap, we can do this. Just letting you know, usually in parliamentary procedure, instead of clapping, we just do jazz hands. But that being said, does anyone have any questions for Caro? All right, if there's nothing, I believe there's a motion that goes with the presentation that should be read up.
This was under information.
Yes, Omar?
I move that the Concordia Student Union, the year of 2017-2018, supports the Waste Not, Want Not compost collaboration with a $7.5 thousand per year in matching funding for the next 3 years.
Great, thank you. Do we have a second? Jonathan, your motivation?
So obviously Devin could be here today, but this is something that she had brought forward, and she's been working with Waste Not Want Not for a while. So I just wanted to make the motion on behalf, and I think the presentation has already answered quite a few of our questions.
Great, thank you. So your speakers list of Dylan and then Awatu.
Is the other 7.5 already been pledged from the university?
No, so we have given them the same budget that we provided to CSU. There's a program that HNS is starting. It's called the Zero Waste Concordia. And so they're making a budget request right now so HNS is making the budget for that program, and they're making requests from the university, and our budget is part of it. So we haven't got the final answer, but HNS, as far as I understand, is supportive.
Thank you. Awatu?
Yeah, I was just wondering, did the executive think about where is this going to come out from? Like, where is the money going to come out from which budget line? Maybe Omar?
Do we have a direct response? Yes, Rory?
Just based on our discussions at Finance Committee, this is one of those years where we do have like a big surplus. We have money that we've accumulated over the past, so there was definitely buffer room. I mean, off the top of my head, I know that there's buffer room for $7.5K in this year's budget.
Great, thank you. Did you have a follow-up, Awatu?
Yeah, I just want to encourage executives to let us know when this has been decided, so we can discuss it later in other council meetings.
Great, thank you. Rory?
Oh, my actual point, yes. I'm just wondering, based on the wording of the motion, when you say the matching amount, does that language make it conditional? Because the way that you read your motion is that we're matching 7.5K, so that would mean that we're only giving 7.5K if there's another 7.5K behind it.
Right.
Okay? Is that the same understanding?
Oh, sorry, I thought you were addressing Carol. Yeah, Omar?
Yeah, I think that's open to council to decide. I've just read the motion as it was suggested previously, but that's a great point that you brought forward, and I guess I'd open that to the rest of the council.
We should definitely distinguish.
Right, absolutely, I agree with you.
Okay, I'll discourage the back and forth. Omar?
So just to answer the previous question, actually, again, not only do we have a surplus this year, we also have a large miscellaneous budget, and that was for this purposes that has if there is an unforeseen project that comes up, we're able to take the money from there, so it's not a problem for us to afford it.
Thank you. Bree? Oh, Dylan?
I think there's perhaps a misunderstanding. Isn't this funds of 7.5K for next year, for the next following 3 years? So we should be spending our budget this year on our current students. We shouldn't be necessarily allocating current funds for future students. We should be perhaps pledging this amount. I think we also need to consider the idea of maybe putting in some addition to this that would require approval of it, just like in club space. We allocate a budget amount, and then Clubs and Space Committee decides whether it's appropriate or not, depending on a fiscal year budget.
Thank you. Roy? Awatu?
I'm sorry, isn't this money requested for this coming year? So like next semester, or is it for the next year coming forward? It doesn't say exactly in the motion.
Can you respond?
So our current funding finishes in winter, so the money that we would be, the next time we're going to use CSU money would be fall of 2018.
Okay. Thank you. Roy?
So I think maybe to interpret from what Dylan has said, we definitely can sort of pledge money. This is CSU Council approving a contract, a sponsorship, or a donation that we're entering into now. If we all agree to it now, it still stands in future years, obviously. It doesn't mean that we're taking that money from this year's budget, like all 3 years of that 7.5K, but we're just saying for 3 years we will be giving this out, and then next year the finance coordinator will have to include that in part of their budget.
Thank you. Omar?
Just a quick question, the budget that you had shown us previously, is that for the whole year, or that's just for the winter semester?
That's the whole year, so fall and winter.
Okay.
Yeah, follow-up?
Follow-up. So would it be fair to assume that you would need half of that for winter specifically, and then from then on forward you need the full 7.5?
No, I would say it's about 2/3 for fall and 1/3 for winter, because first of all, there's less orientation in winter than in fall, and also in terms of our food festivals, this is already our major cost. We would not be outside, for example, in the winter, as you saw in the video, so there'll be fewer days in the winter than there are in the fall.
Right. Thank you. So at this point, if there's no more questions or discussion, we can move to a vote. So all those in favor of the motion, please raise your oh, sorry, did you have a question?
Yeah, I think it is important that we clarify the conditional nature of this motion as to whether it is conditional on the matching amount or not.
Can someone clarify that? Yes, Ron?
I amend to remove the word matching, or I move to amend.
Okay, to remove the word matching? Okay, do we have a second? Tavia? Can it be considered friendly? Is there any opposition to removing the word matching? Yes, Dylan?
I would actually prefer it to be conditional on getting that 7.5K because the administration will be looking at the budget and approving it. So if they don't believe that they need a full $15,000 and that they need less, then we should only match accordingly.
Okay, so there is opposition to the wording. Rowan, your motivation?
I think it speaks for itself. Roy's already addressed it.
Okay. Yes?
Can I find?
Yeah.
So I did send the draft for this motion, and when I wrote matching, I didn't mean it as conditional, but I wanted to be somehow explicit that CSU expects the administration to match it, and I feel like this is one way to sort of put more pressure. I mean, I don't know if they actually need any more pressure, but to me, I just wanted the expectation to be explicit, but I don't want it also to be conditional per se. This is just my thought process, but.
Okay. So I have a speakers list of Sophie, Rory, and then Omar. Floor is yours.
Yeah, I'd just like to point out that the CSU already has a sustainability policy that's pro-compost, so I don't see a problem in unconditional funding towards this project.
Great. Thank you. Rory?
My personal opinion is just like Sophie, there's no reason why we shouldn't be able to give this money or more money or less money. However, not to debate the technicalities of it, but there are some times when you use the word matching when you're funding something because that project can't go forward without the larger amount. So if it's something like you're buying a car, and you can't get a car for less than 10 grand. If you only get 5, you're not getting a car, period. There's just 5 sitting there. So that's the idea behind this, that we need to know, does this initiative need our amount matching another amount? As in, do they need 14K, do they need 15K to make it happen? And that's why it's conditional on matching, because if it doesn't happen, if they don't get 15K, it won't go forward or not. You see what I mean? Like, there's no point paying for half of something that can't go forward because it doesn't have the full amount. So that's where there is importance in saying, is it matching, is it conditional or not? And maybe we should broaden that to just say, how much do you actually need? If you need more than the 7.5K, then that should be enough pressure on your team to raise it without us. We don't need to make it conditional. But maybe you can clarify as to what these funds are used for and whether you have flexibility in it.
So, I mean, I can see an education campaign being done with 7.5, but it would compromise the impact significantly. So, let's just talk about the food festival. Just food festival, for example. We have 5 days. If we have less money, we'll do less days. So you would have many areas that we would not reach out to at all. So if with 50% off, then it's going to be 1 or 2 days food festival. So it'll be just the whole building, let's say, and maybe one time in Loyola. But then the rest of the downtown campus doesn't get any outreach. So significantly compromise the impact. I might as well just not do it. But
yep.
I don't know if that makes sense.
So to clarify,
yeah.
if you got less money, you would still do the initiative. You just do a smaller scale initiative.
I didn't say that would be my decision. I would say that if I had to do the initiative with less money, this is the way I would do it. But I feel like I want to make sure that whatever money I spend is impactful. And if I feel like it's not going to have an impact, I might decide not move forward with it and just return the money. But so I want to make sure whatever money I get is impactful, that's sufficient to have an impact. That's what I'm saying.
So you're saying there is the potential for if you didn't have
okay,
enough.
we've had 2 follow-ups already. Dylan.
Oh, yeah. My idea with the idea of making it conditional on the matching is, once again, to have that full effect, but also just to have that oversight. We'd be allocating 7.5, and right now there's no conditions that dictates how that funds is spent, so perhaps maybe adding an addition onto it that the sustainability coordinator perhaps would be overseeing the distribution. I'm not sure if they're the best person. Someone could perhaps clarify.
Great, thank you. So we're kind of going a bit in circles. I'd encourage someone to suggest wording if we're not. Okay, Marco and then Rory on the speakers list. Okay, Rory?
So I move to amend this motion to read that in the event that this initiative does not fundraise its full amount, that they be mandated to come back to council with another request. So that would just allow them to make that, to either say, oh, we want to give it back, or we're not going to be able to use it fully, so could you give us a little bit more because we weren't able to fundraise the full amount. It would ensure that they get their full effect.
Okay, so there's a motion to amend the amendment on the table to remove, simply to remove the word matching, and then the amendment to that is to replace it with in the event that, et cetera, et cetera. Do we have a second? Yes, Ron? Okay, your motivation?
Yeah, if we're gonna remove the whole matching bit, that's the condition, then we just add the like, what if something bad happens clause to the end. So it covers us, if you're removing a restrictive covenant, which is the restriction of what needs to be matching, we just give the other clause at the end.
Alright. Is there any discussion to be had on the amendment to the amendment? Yes, Layla?
I just have some concerns that say they were to receive slightly under half, then that would mean that they'd have to come back in order to secure that funding. And I would encourage council, if we support this project, to just consider that money as support for that project and not to add a bunch of conditions when this project is clearly established and has already gone to several funding bodies and been quite successful. So I don't think there's a concern about needing to put any safeguards in place just in order to see that there's an absolute equal amount of funding for it.
Okay, thank you. Reed?
Can I have the full motion read with amendments?
Yep. So the current motion is that, sorry, taking out Devin's name from it, that the CSU supports the Waste Not Want Not compost collaboration with a 7.5K a year in matching funding for the next 3 years. And then the amendment to the amendment is that in the event that this initiative does not fundraise its full amount, that they be mandated to come back to council with another request. And the actual amendment is to remove the word matching. Is that good? Perfect. Speakers list open. Yes, Rory?
Yeah, just to sort of follow up on Layla's point, to summarize what I want in my amendment, it's basically to say if you don't raise what you want or what you need, come back and please ask us for more. It's not saying like, come back and we're gonna discuss, we'll take the money back away from you, but because it is a good initiative and because we've already like said we wanna support it, it's just mandating that if they don't think they can do it with what they have then, they come back and we can give them more. Like it's kind of having that please come back moment in there.
Okay, thank you. Carol?
Okay. So one thing that I was discussing with Devin is that if council decides to approve this, I would ask her to write the letters that they can take to HNS saying that council, the CSU council has decided to provide the 7.5 part of the funding, and council does expect matching funding from HNS, or sort of an encouragement there, so it's clear that to them that the CSU sees it as a matching funding. Maybe not necessarily, maybe you don't have to necessarily have it in the motion, so that's not restrictive, and it could be just in the letter where you apply that pressure without actually having the legal restriction, whatever it is. But I don't know if that makes any sense.
Thank you. Omar?
So, if council's okay, why don't we take out that as a condition and make it as an option, instead of saying that they have to come back, they can come back if they want?
Because we have 2 amendments on the table and you can't amend to amend. It's 2 and you're done. Reem?
Sorry, just to shadow Omar's point, if we can make it known that they can always come back to the CSU, we don't have to mandate people to ask us for money. So, do we vote on the amendments?
Yeah, so you can either vote for it or vote against it.
Sorry, can I have the amendment one more time?
Yep. It's that in the event that this initiative does not fundraise its full amount, that they be mandated to come back to council with another request.
Okay, I move to vote to...
Okay, yeah, you can't move to call the question after speaking, but Rory, there's one more person.
It was just what our guest had mentioned about like calling upon the other groups to donate as well. I think we should do that in a separate motion afterwards, and we can add that other amendment. Like it needs to be considered separately from what we're considering right now. Right now we're voting on the amendment.
Yes.
Right? So that's we can always add that after.
Great. Yes, Sally?
So to be clear, what we're gonna do, we're gonna have it for more than 1 year, like more than years, right? 3 years. I know, 3 years, right? Okay. So I think for now we're gonna support them, but maybe next year people are gonna say, oh no, we're not gonna give you money. So I don't think so. It's a good idea to have that in the motion.
Actually, after some further looking into the motion, I'm actually going to reject the wording of it because we can't mandate another group to do anything. The CSU can mandate its own people to do things, so you guys can mandate yourselves or you can mandate the executive to do stuff, but nobody can mandate another group to come back and request something. Sorry, I hadn't realized that in the original amendment, so I'm going to reject the wording.
Can we part of the inquiry?
Yes?
If we are giving them money, then that's part of a condition of giving them the money. It's like a contract. If we're going to pay for something, or we're going to, not that we're paying for something, but if we give them money, we say we're going to support you with X amount of dollars, we can add that restriction of like, you have to provide a report of how you're using it, etc.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's mandating them to provide a report on something. It's the same way we can mandate them to say, if you haven't received your full amount, please come back to us and let us know.
That's a request, not a mandate. You can request that, because the
Can we
thing
change
is
the wording
that,
to request then?
I mean, it doesn't have to be official. We could change the wording to request, but the
It
thing
just
is
puts
that
it on
if
record.
they don't make the full amount and they don't feel like coming back to council, that's fine
You
too.
don't need to, but it's still in the motion that we're requesting they come back. Like, please come and ask us for more.
You can do
That's
that
what
if
the
you want.
spirit of this motion is for, so it's.
All right. Is everyone all right with the wording request instead of mandate? Can we just accept that as good? All right. Okay, so with that, I have Dylan and then Omar on the speakers list.
Could you reread the motion?
Yep. Okay, so the motion that we have on the table currently, sorry, I have this right. Okay, the motion that we have on the table is that the CSU supports the Waste Not, Want Not compost collaboration with a 7.5K a year in matching funding for the next 3 years. The amendment is to remove the word matching, and the amendment to that is that we add on the end, in the event that this initiative does not fundraise its full amount, that they be requested to come back to council with another request. Is that good? Okay, Dylan? Oh, sorry, Omar?
I rescind, thank you.
Okay, Rowan? No.
I rescind.
Okay, so with that, there's no more speakers list, so we are voting on just the amendment. So all those in favor of the amendment, please raise your placards.
Kind of information,
Yes?
taking off matching or adding the amendment?
Adding the amendment. So tacking on in the event that this initiative does not fundraise its full amount, et cetera, and then after we'll vote on.
We'll vote on
Yeah.
matching, okay.
All good?
Oh, we've got 3 layers here.
Yeah.
Good.
We have 3 layers. In the future, I'm going to be a little bit more disciplined on layers, just to let that go. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 17. All those opposed? And any abstentions? 1. All right, so we're back on the amendment. There's no speakers list. The second amendment carries. The first amendment is to remove the word matching. Is there any discussion to be had? Okay, all those in favor, please raise your placards. 17, all those opposed? 0, and any abstentions? 1, 2. All right, so that carries, and we're back on the main motion, which also doesn't have a speakers list. Rory?
I move to amend to add, be it further resolved, the CSU strongly encourage other groups at the university to support this initiative.
Okay. Do we have a second? Sophie, your motivation?
It's just to follow up on what our guest had said, that it's also important, if we're not using those words matching, that we call upon the rest, like other funding groups, to say, hey, the CSU's pitched in money, you should pitch in money too.
Okay, is there any discussion to be had? Or can we accept it by unanimity? Perfect, so if there's no opposition to the amendment, we can accept it by a unanimity. Yes, Dylan?
I think I'd like to add onto it, like, be it resolved that the funds only be dispersed after a budget is provided and approved by Finance Committee.
Okay, so this is completely, like, this is adding on
Yeah,
to
it's
the motion.
adding on,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, so the first amendment was accepted based on the fact that it's procedural and nobody really has any objection to it. So could you reread that, please? Be it further resolved that?
Be it further resolved that the amount is only distributed after it is approved after the spending of it is approved by the Finance Committee.
Okay, do we have a second? Awatif, your motivation?
Yeah. Just the idea is that if we're giving them money, just to have some oversight that they're spending it according to the plan that was presented today.
Okay, is there any opposition to the amendment? Yes, Rory?
We do this all the time. We're giving money to a group, and they're a separate group that does their own thing. So in supporting the initiative, we're supporting them to do what with this money, what they choose. They've presented their proposal to us, which is this is what we plan to do with it. This isn't like a CSU club where they're under the umbrella and we need to approve exactly what they spend it on because we are reimbursing them. This is us just giving the money out. So I don't think that this amendment is required.
Right. Is there any more discussion to be had on the amendment? Not, we can move to a vote. So all those in favor of adding at the end that the amount is distributed after the spending is approved by FinCom, please raise your placards. 1, 2, 2. All right, all those opposed? 12, and any abstentions? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, so the amendment fails, and we're back on the main speakers list. So this is the motion as a whole, as amended. Yes, Rory?
Question?
There's no one on the speakers list, so. All right, all those in favor of the motion as a whole, please raise your placard. So this is the motion as amended. All right? Yep. Did you want me to reread it?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, sorry. I was waiting for that. Okay, I'll just reread it so everyone knows what we're voting on. Okay, so it's that the CSU support the Waste Not, Want Not compost collaboration with a 7.5K a year in funding for the next 3 years. Note we took out matching. In the event that this initiative does not fundraise its full amount, that they be requested to come back to council. And be it further resolved that the CSU strongly encourage other groups to support this initiative. We all know what we're voting on? Perfect. So all those in favor, please raise your placards. 18. All those opposed? 0. And any abstentions? 0. So that carries unanimously. At this point, the speakers list is open. Is there any more discussion to be had on Waste Not, Want Not? Okay, so with that, I'd like to thank you very much for showing up and for presenting.
Sure.
Okay, so there's some physical documents being handed out for the next point. Are you doing the next point too? Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, and I will.
Okay.
Physical
No. Oh, no, there's just hard copies. All right, everyone, so at this point we are on point 5B, and we have Anna here to present us the CUCCR.
Excellent. Oh, thank you so much for having me. There is no motion on the table. I'm just presenting the project that I am working on, and I'm going to use this computer that is not a Mac.
You help.
So what I'm passing around is an expansion plan. So what I'm going to do really quickly is talk a little bit about, oh, this doesn't have internet, so we're just going to avoid it. What we're going to do is we're right now, we have, okay, well first, has anybody heard about Sucker? The Concordia University Center for Creative Reuse. Have you been?
Yeah.
Has anyone been? Yeah? You can? Okay. Excellent. So what Sucker is, it's a creative reuse center that collects usable materials from all over the university and then makes them available for free to our community, and that community being students, faculty, staff, and greater community. So it's not restricted. What we have done is it's brand new. We were funded by the Big Hairy Idea, which is a CCSL initiative that was allocated in 2016. And in the year, we put together an entire project that opened in March, just this past March. And we've been open in this, in the 8 months, I guess it is, 9 months since we've opened. We've diverted over 4.5 tons of material. which is really incredible. What we've done is we collected materials requesting that student organizations, different departments, offices, businesses within the university think about the materials that they're discarding and look at what they're throwing out and seeing whether or not it's still usable by other groups or organizations. So we bring this material in and we provide it for new things. So we also ask our members, so anyone can become a member. You can all sign up to do that online. It's completely free. It asks a little bit about where you've come from or what department or faculty. And then we ask when you come and you take materials. So that's, when I say materials, it's really vague. But it's like binders and folders. Never buy a binder again. There's so many on campus that have been donated and are available for you guys all to take. It's wood, it's paper product, it's things that you might revision into something for your home or into a new project for a class or a portfolio that you may present a project in. However, you come down and check it out. But what we also ask is how much money you think you would have spent. So we're also collecting metrics about the amount of money that we're saving our community by preventing new purchasing. And this initiative and project has been wildly successful. We've collaborated with many diverse groups around campus. We've provided materials for off-campus groups and organizations, Quartiers and the YWCA, all sorts of different initiatives. And what we've realized in the 8 months that we've been open is that we don't have enough space. We need more to do more. And so what we've been working on is a plan with environmental health and safety and services to renovate a space allocated in the Grey Nuns building. And so this is this dream about this 2.0 space, which is all of the package that you've gotten today, which is even bigger and has much bigger impact. So what it does is not just the depot of materials, but it's also a space for making, so tables and materials and tools for you to actually come and sit and produce something. If you would, need to build a shelf for your apartment, but you don't have a saw, and you don't need to go out and buy a saw and a screwdriver and all of those things, come and use the material. We don't have anywhere right now that all students or even community members can be like, this is the perfect piece of wood, where can I cut it? That happens all of the time. And we have to go through this, questionnaire. Are you a student? Are you a fine arts student? If you're a fine arts student, there are labs and workshops that are available to you. If you're engineering, there are also some labs and workshops available to you by appointment with special permission. But an average community member or an average student, that's not necessarily what's available to them. So the shed, which is a part of our 2.0 expansion, would be a tool library and a woodworking co-op. That would woodworking space that would require membership and training, but you could be a part of that, and then you could use those tools yourself. It also is in collaboration with, obviously, this shed, which is an initiative that's really aimed at tool literacy and encouraging humans to have more confidence with using tools themselves. So those are things that are not everybody has an opportunity to do. And where do you get those skills? Well, maybe it's in your backyard or your wood shop or your workshop at home. Maybe it's not. So that's one of the pieces that we're working to expand that. And the reason actually that 2.0 got pushed so fast, like we haven't even been open a year, but we had an opportunity to apply for a Recyc Quebec grant, which is a waste management company in Quebec, for $75,000. So we dialed up the speed of all of our programming and planning for the future and put together a really comprehensive plan with the environmental health and safety approved now at the Board of Governors of Concordia. So like Concordia applied to Recyc Quebec on our behalf, which is really wonderful. And we made this whole plan and then we did this the full planning workup for the Grey Nun space. And as with everything, it was much more expensive than we thought it would be. So the renovation cost of that building for the space that we are looking at is $231,000. So EHS and VP Services, which is Roger Cote, they're putting together the request for capital for that fund, but they're concerned that we don't have enough multi-stakeholder funding security. And I know that so the way that we're approaching that and the way we've always been built is with a multi-stakeholder approach, that if many organizations and groups come together to fund a little bit, then we can really keep the costs low for each one of them, and then it doesn't ride the back of one organization or one faculty or one. So as you can see on the back, there's a list of many different stakeholders. This is a preliminary proposal that's going in conjunction with, so this Recit Quebec grant is in, and we just heard that we've moved to the next level of eligibility, which is really wonderful. We'll hear in March. And now we're tasked and excited to shop this around in as many places as we can. See who and how we can get everyone else involved. So, things are like moving full tilt, and I'm really just excited to be here to sort of kind of plant the seeds with all of you here, and you can, feel free to take that back to your own departments and networks, and also open the floor to some collaborative discussion about where all of those pieces will come. This is like Waste Not Whatnot. It's administrative, faculty and staff, and student, all kind of with equal share in it. This is really pushing this multi-stakeholder approach, which the university hasn't done so much of yet. So, and would really like to do. So they're really excited about working with us on this. And this also is in part with the Zero Waste Initiative and all of those pieces that also are connected with bigger moves on campus. So, yeah, I mean, our metrics are crazy. Those are not the most recent. You can check our website for the most updated live metrics. I think we have almost 1,000 members, and we've saved over $50,000 in new purchasing. We've diverted over 6 tons of materials have come in. We just did a reclaim-a-thon where we collected materials all at the end of the semester and then restocked our shelves, and so we weigh everything in and we weigh everything out. So. Yeah, that was a lot of information. Questions?
Rory?
So if I'm writing an email to the dean of my faculty to say that they should support this, where can I get a digital copy?
I can send you that, and you can, yeah. I actually, if it's okay, I can send it. Is it okay to attach it to the notes or in some way get connected to all of you?
You can send it to me and I can send it out to the group.
Wonderful.
If that's okay.
And your dean, I don't know what department you're in, should have already received this, actually.
Okay, so if she does already have a copy, then okay.
Well, it's good to bring it too, and coming at many different people, like many different places, if it comes forward, it makes a much stronger unified front.
Great, thank you. So I have a speakers list of Michaela, Patrick, Jonathan, and Dylan. Michaela.
Yeah, I just want to say that I've been to the center and it's super awesome, and I'm really happy you're expanding because it is a small space. And as a fine art student and seeing like all those canvases and other kind of interesting materials to work with, that's super awesome that there's a place to get it rather than kind of scavenging around. But also making it accessible to people who are not in fine arts and like having like a wood shop area and tools. I'm wondering, are people able to like, as a library, take them out of the space?
So that's all 2.0. We're working right now with all of the planning for that and setting and looking at other models to go forward with legal. There's obviously really big legal liability with checking out a tool, having a student use it, and then come back. So all of those things are in process. Ideally, yes, because you aren't going to bring all of the wood to build a bookshelf to the space and then build it and then carry it all home. You know, transportation is a big concern. So ideally, yes.
Great, thank you. Patrick?
I'm just wondering what, is the only location that you guys are looking for doing this thing?
So this is a location that is currently available to us. It was identified by facilities, by a person that works within facilities as a furniture kind of manager of all of the universities. And this is a space that would meet some of the needs for a furniture reuse piece. It's, the space isn't exactly 100% ideal for a 2.0. There's some accessibility issues and there's a few access issues that we're working out, but it's our best option right now.
Thank you. Jonathan?
I love the expanding idea, but I just wanted to ask about the funding breakdown. In the event that one or several of your funding sources were to not contribute, what would happen to the expansion?
Well, it is still looking like it's going ahead as planned. Concordia has, I want to say pledged because it's not confirmed yet, but they're looking at funding at least 50% of this. And there's definitely many other avenues. You'll see that the percentage breakdown doesn't actually break down to 100%, so it's much higher than that. So there's room for flexibility, and there's also room for people to come forward and change the amount, either add more or reduce. This was just a starting place for conversations. But we may reach out to other external funds or look at other grants if that doesn't move, if for some reason we're coming up too short.
Great, thank you. Dylan?
I was curious, so what's the timeline on when you guys are going to be coming back and asking for the capital that's been asked for by the CSU?
Right. So we hear from RISC Quebec in March, and we need to know if we have at least an additional half of that funding before then. So realistically, it will be in the new semester between January and March. We'll come back with a request.
All right, thank you. Sally?
So you're saying that any student, I'm an engineer, I can go there and work?
Yeah.
So that's times 2, like that's what you want to do?
Yes. And when you graduate, you can still come back and use it. Or your neighbor also can come and use it.
What if some of the... So my neighbor who's not from Concordia can go there?
Yes.
Even if he's not a student?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. What's your?
Arisa.
Reed?
I see here for the ENCS faculty, there's 5% contribution for operational funding and another 5% for capital funding. Mm-hmm. So has this been approved?
So
is it confirmed by the faculty?
And not yet. So especially engineering is one of a faculty that we're having a little bit. Well, this proposal went out at the last week of November. So we're only 3 weeks into our kind of networking and meeting. We have met with the Dean of Fine Arts, and we have a meeting scheduled for the Dean of Arts and Science. But engineering is one of the places that if anybody has a connection that would be able to help, that would be great.
So you haven't been able to contact the Dean of Engineering?
No, and I don't think that that's because of lack of interest, or I think purely scheduling.
It's a great...
okay, sorry, you've had a lot of follow-ups. It's okay. Omar?
So just so I understand, this is what the projection, or this is what you guys would like, and it's not reflective of the current situation?
Yes.
Is it possible to get something similar to this as to what you already have, just to see where you're going from and where you are right now?
Sure. At this point, which has been 2 weeks of meetings and kind of casually, we have 4 of those lines confirmed, and they are mostly primarily, all but one are student associations or groups. So they're student funds. What is still to be confirmed, which will actually is because of their financial system. Academic faculties, their year end is in May, so they both need to wait until closer to then to know if they have money to spend that's left over, and they need to put it in early to know whether or not they have for the future. So we're working on many different timelines, and so yes and no.
Thank you. Daniel?
In theory, if you do not get the grant, what happens to the money that has already been raised?
Yeah. That's a good question, and we've done so much work in terms of pushing forward and putting into place all of the other Concordia requirements for the grant, like planning assessments and things, that I believe it will move forward regardless. The timeline may be a little bit different because we would receive the $75,000 from Recit Quebec if we get that in March, and we would have 18 months to spend it. So it pushes things faster. If we don't receive that grant, I believe it will still go through, but we will be on a slightly longer time frame. But the funds would remain. Yeah.
Rory?
I have a couple questions. Can I machine gun them? By what deadline do you need to have this funding? What's your timeline for expanding? This is like 2018?
Yes. So ideally we have at least 50% of our funds secured by March, when we know whether or not we will accept the grant. And the timeline for actual renovations and spending money wouldn't begin until fall of 2018. But due to the planning and construction schedule, no construction can start until the fall of 2018, so we aren't looking for an open until summer 2019, soft launch, open 2019 September, based on their needs.
Second question, specifically which grant did you apply to? What was it called?
It was Recit Quebec. So it's a waste management provincial.
Okay.
Yep.
And my final question was, you mentioned you hadn't been able to contact or get a meeting with engineering. Have you been able to do that with James?
We received a contact with their financial person, and they have said that their funds are allocated for this year, but to re-engage in a conversation in the new year for future allocation. So yes, we have had some communication, but there may be more connections to be made.
Who'd you send it to?
I sent it to the dean, and then it was passed to their financial person within the office.
All right, thank you. Sally?
If you need contacts in engineering, I can help you with that. You can talk to me later.
Wonderful.
All right. Is there any more discussion or questions for Anna? All right. There's no motion on the table, by the way. Kathy?
I actually just have one. So I've never visited the place before, but I'm just wondering, is there like a staffing system, like a library where there's someone there checking you in, or if, for example, you want to take something out, like what's the system like?
Absolutely. So that's a really good question. I didn't say we're open Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 1 to 5, so 3 afternoons a week, opening at the beginning of the semester, so in January. If you want to take materials, you're welcome to just come and become a member there on the spot, or you can do that in advance. It's free, and then you can look around and find materials that you'd like to take with you. And then there's a checkout station where we weigh everything out. We connect it to your membership name, and we ask you how much you think you would have spent, and that's the transaction. That's you leave, but it's all free material.
But the people that are there that are taking care of that, are they being paid or is it voluntary?
It's paid, yeah. So we have two, myself as the project coordinator, and we have a depot coordinator. Both of those are part-time positions. With this expansion plan, it will need to be a full-time position and 2 part-time positions at the minimum, because we're expanding for hold. But right now, yes, it's paid with, complemented by 3 internships, and an average of 10 to 12 volunteers.
Okay. So like,
Thank you. Oh, sorry. I'm trying to cap it at 2 questions for everyone, just so that we don't spend too much time per person. That's why I keep telling you you've had a lot of follow-ups. But yeah, so we'll keep it at 2 questions. Then if you want to be put back on the speakers list, I'll put you at the end. So I have Dylan, Marco, and Rory.
What is your current operating budget?
Our current operating budget is actually at about $80,000 a year. We received about only half of that this running year from Concordia only. But we have figured how that will take us through till the end of winter, and then we'll be applying to some student funds potentially to help us out with the summer. But this has come up so fast that actually it would dovetail perfectly and we would be fine.
And who gives the other half? You said like half of it's funded internally through Concordia.
Mhm.
Who's the other half coming from?
Right now it was a Sustainability Action Fund and student grants, so yes.
Thank you. Okay. All right, Marco?
Just more of a question. So you said it's membership, right? It's membership based. Could you track the usage of each members?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So that's something you can use in an argument to try and get funding from specific faculties, right? Saying X% of our usage comes from your faculty, therefore, there's an incentive for you to provide us with more funds. So that's more of like, well, I suppose this is what's happening here, but I mean like for engineering and so on and so forth, I think that could be an advantage for you.
So you could all look at the live metrics at cuccr.ca, and that's updated all the time. You can see how the breakdown is. You'll see that out of our almost 1,000 members, it is primarily fine arts, which is really interesting and fair, understandable as a new thing, and we're looking to reach out to other departments that have lower turnout to increase the membership in that way and figure out how they can connect with it on a different level and still be a part of it. So absolutely, that metric system is coming in really handy, and we have an incredible web designer that helped us build a system from scratch.
Did you have a follow-up?
I did. Do you currently have some kind of online marketing campaign to try and increase awareness of your services?
We don't.
Okay.
Yeah. That would be something I'd love to do, but I don't have the capacity to do it right now.
That's fine. Well, I mean, depending on what kind of funding you get in the future, that could be something to implement. That would also increase a lot of awareness and kind of get the ball rolling with your project.
Absolutely. Great.
Thank you. Rory?
This isn't a question, this is just a comment for everyone. This is one of those opportunities where we as counselors can have some actual impact on like changing things. A lot of the times as counselors we're usually like just voting on things at council, where you're sitting on committees but you're not actually doing something. And this is one of those things where as a counselor you're a representative, and if this is a project that you think your faculty can benefit from, it's like writing to your MP. You can write to your MP and say, please vote yes to this bill, please vote no to this bill. I'm a stakeholder from X and I believe that this should happen. Writing to your deans, if there are multiple, more than one of you from each faculty and you all write and you say something different, it's just showing that like, I represent my students, I've been voted by my students, and I'm saying this is good and you should support it. And it's not like it does anything necessarily, but this is where like you can actually take action on behalf of the people you represent instead of just raising a placard and voting. So just a comment for everyone.
Okay, thank you. Reem and then Marco.
Thank you, Rory. So my next question is actually, you guys share the space with SAE, so you're at the cage currently, right?
Yes.
Have you? Yes.
It's not shared directly, but it's in the same floor.
It's in the same floor. Have you contacted this association? Have you been in contact for any collaborations with that kind? Because you have kind of
natural collaborations have happened. We have great working relationships that have been built. We haven't approached them in any kind of formal capacity for collaboration.
Do you have the contacts for that?
I have informal contacts, but maybe more formal ones would be great.
Thank you. Marco?
Kind of add on to Councillor Rory's point, sitting on various council committees at JMSB, I know that sustainability is one of the areas where JMSB is currently lacking, and it's part of the criterias for certain accreditations that we have. So I kind of agree, I'm agreeing with what Rory is saying here, is that we could actually make a movement here to try and improve our status as a school internationally, nationally, in the eyes of everyone.
And we're also working and opening many opportunities for collaboration, consultation, working with student groups or departments to sort of help make a creative plan or assist in any way. Whether that's back and forth, the curriculum development is what we're doing in the fine arts, that could be across that. And please feel free to share this with anyone that you come across. I mean, there's lots of possibility.
Great, thank you. Omar?
Just a quick question. Have you considered to have a fee levy?
We have considered it, and we have decided that we will not be going that route. We're really looking for a diversified funding structure. I think that it is the strongest, and it also gives multiple stakeholders a voice in the process. So, yeah.
Thank you. Daniel?
You said earlier that 4 of those lines have been secured. Just which 4?
Yeah, so, I mean, with everything, there's some waiting time that goes into that. They, like I said, they're mostly student money and then one, the Faculty of Fine Arts. So yeah, I don't know how confirmed everything is, but, I mean, confirmed, but money in our account is different, as everything takes time.
Thank you. Sally?
There's no motion on the floor, right?
No. Rory?
Yeah, just to follow up there, from my experience on Senate, when you write to any administrator of the university and you include the connection to the strategic directions, like find them online, if you literally, you can practically hashtag the strategic direction and they get all excited. So if you're trying to argue something to your dean or to professors or to people you know in the university, if you tie it back to the strategic directions, they love it. Just pro tip.
Thank you. Marco?
Do you issue or release any financial statements at the end of your year to show how your money was spent?
We haven't reached one of those years yet. Previously, we were funded by CCSL and Sustainability Action Fund, and we have full reports for both of those bodies, but that's the way that we've gone about it so far.
Thank you. Dylan?
I move to limit the debate for 5 more additional minutes.
It's technically not a debate. There's no one else on the speakers list.
Oh, perfect.
Does anyone have any more questions? Okay. Yes, Ahmed?
Do you have a Facebook page?
We do. We have Facebook and Instagram, and our website is growing and changing too, so all of those places.
Okay, maybe it will be a good option if, to post, your Facebook page on different, clubs at Concordia. I think it will give more publicity, so.
Sure, absolutely. If anybody wants to.
I can do it for the NCS, so.
What? That would be great. We'd be very happy to do that.
Okay. So I'm going to give Anna my email, and then you can send me anything you want disseminated to council, and then they'll have all the documents as a soft copy. So yes, Carol.
May I see your email?
Yeah. It's chair@csu.qc.ca. So I'll send it to both of you, and then I'll disseminate whatever you send me. So if there's nothing further, I'd like to thank both Anna and Carol for coming and presenting and answering your questions. Oh, who did that?
I'm old-fashioned.
If you would like to keep the financial package and you feel like you're going to share it with someone else, that would be great. If not, and in the effort to reduce printing, you could pass it towards that way. It will be used in another
presentation.
presentation.
Upload a PDF file that's on your website.
Absolutely. Oh, great idea. Absolutely. PDF and then
That's
through
the only reason I'm
email.
giving it back, because I would like to.
Sure.
I find when you walk into meetings with people, or you catch them in the hall, and you have something that they can hold in their hands, and be like, oh, look at the beautiful colors, the nice paper. Oh, you're asking for money on the book.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
They're just like, they connect.
All right,
the
everyone.
dots.
At this point, we're done the presentation, so we're on the appointments point. I think I know what both of you are going to say about Veronica. Yeah.
Can I move to recess?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, Layla.
I just have an additional point to make. That I think it would be really great to grab food and continue just because we have quite a long meeting. But just as a note to new counselors, if you have any dietary restrictions, please let me know. But also, please don't bring clementines or peanuts to council as there are allergies.
Omar, yes. Okay, we'll recess for 10 minutes, which is going to end up being 15, because the finance coordinator applicants are waiting outside. Finance coordinator is going to be a very long point, or long-ish. Yeah. Okay, so we'll make it 10 flat. The point 6A, I've received some requests to do the finance coordinator report first. So instead of breaking Robert's rules and voting on all that, are we just okay with making finance coordinator 6A? Can we just shift that around? Perfect. So that makes our lives a whole lot easier. Yes, Omar.
I move to go in closed session.
Yes, thank you very much. That's step number 2. Okay, so there's a motion to go into closed, requires 2/3 majority, seconded by Ali. All those in favor, please raise your placards. 19, all those opposed? 0, and any abstentions? 0, perfect. So at this point I'll ask everyone who's not executive, counselor, JB, myself, or the minute keeper to please leave the room, and we'll proceed with the finance coordinator applications. Thank you. so we have a motion to ratify the decisions made in closed session by Rory, seconded by Veronica. All those in favor of ratifying the minutes of closed session, please raise your placards. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. All those opposed? 0. And any abstentions? 0. Perfect. Oh, yes. Okay, for new counselors, when we go into closed session, the minutes are not kept. We just keep the motions. On another note, when we go back into open, we ratify everything that was done in closed. So we're just to the camera and to anyone watching saying we did all these things in closed session and now we are making note of them in open session. So, yes. Moving forward, we are on 6B. So now we're appointing 2 committees. Yeah, I'll get you in a second, Dorian, because you're on the speakers list. Committees are the standing committees of council. I think I sent you guys something about them to start thinking about if you want to sit on a committee if you're new. So committees are where the experts are found. So that we can avoid these really, really long discussions in council about like sustainability policy and mobilization and things like that. Those go to committee and committee deals with them in the minutia and the detail and reports back to council. Yes, Rowan?
I move to table all committee appointments until next council meeting.
Okay, do we have a second? Sophie, your motivation?
I really doubt any committees are going to be meeting before break. I checked, Senate is not till after next council meeting, so whoever gets appointed to that seat can be appointed before next Senate meeting. It is 11:10 p.m. We have a lot of points left on the agenda. I would like to get home at some point tonight.
Can you just clarify if you mean standing committees? Because Senate's not an appointment per se, it's just a shuffle.
Okay, everything except Senate.
Yeah, there is also an appointment too.
No, it's all.
All of it?
You just want
All.
like it? Okay.
Yep.
So
Point
like
6.
it, everything under 6.
Yep.
Okay. Your motivation done. Okay, speakers list, Roy.
I would recommend that we remove Senate from that tabling, just because although it may not meet before next council, it would allow us to say open a call out to appointments committee, let students at large apply. It would give time for that process to commence as of now, if we were to choose that option. Versus other committees, which are committees of this council, like we fill them straight from council, we might want to fill some of these other committees, like Senate, from the student body. So not tabling it might allow us to discuss those possibilities.
Thank you. Awatsu?
Yeah, I just want to mention that, please Ahmed, correct me if I'm wrong, external committee was supposed to meet before the term ends. I'm just afraid that it will not make quorum if we do not appoint someone to the committee. So
do you want to clarify? Is it yes or no?
Yeah, we'll meet next week.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you.
We have 3 councillors.
Okay. Dylan?
Rescind.
Okay. Ali? Yeah, I put you on the speech list. Ali?
So since some like Senate, I'm just echoing what Rory said. I think it should be removed. I wasn't gonna say this. I was gonna amend the motion that we should remove Senate from the.
Okay, so your motion.
From the original, yeah, that was the thing I wanted to say. Yeah.
Okay, can we have a second? Okay, can it be considered friendly so we can just deal with the Senate appointment? Perfect. So to table everything except 6G, which is Senate.
I have an amendment.
Yes.
Do I need to wait for my?
There's no one on this. Well, there's Sally. Sorry, there's Sally, and then you.
To say an information, I'm traveling next week, so you can't meet without me, right? Because I'm part of the.
Well, then you need.
So you need
okay,
another
I feel like
person.
this is something that can be resolved a little bit internally.
They need a new one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the point. That's what I'm saying. That's why I'm bringing this up.
Okay, so does external committee need a person?
We have. We need one. There's one seat, yes, open.
Can you live until next meeting without filling it?
Like,
No,
we have.
Not 1 seat. It's 2 seats. He was
Yeah.
a student appointed. He's not appointed anymore because he's on council. He needs to be on the committee now through council because he was appointed student.
Okay.
But it's appointment committee.
There's 4 voting members, 1 person can't make it, that's full quorum.
Okay, can you live until next meeting without dealing with this, or do you want to deal with it now?
I don't think it will take us more than 3 minutes. If no one is interested, we can move on.
Okay.
Like to mobilize for external and vote for it. It won't take much.
Okay, so external committee cannot live until next meeting without an extra member. Awatif.
Can I amend it now?
Yes, to remove XCOM from.
Yes, please.
Perfect. Do we have a second? Rory, can we all agree that we can do Senate and external tonight? Excellent. Okay, so is there any more discussion before we move to a vote? All right, so all those in favor of tabling everything except 6A and 6G, please raise your placards. 16, all those opposed? 0, and was that an opposition, Daniel? Yes. Okay, 1, and any abstentions? 1. Perfect, so that carries. And we will start off with 6B, which is External and Mobilization Committee. So the way committee appointments usually work is I say, does anyone want to be on the committee? You say yes, somebody else says yes. We go around the room, nobody else says yes. I say, why do you want to be on the committee? You say, why you want to be on the committee, and then we move to a vote. Okay, does anyone want to nominate themselves to external? Yes, Awatif.
I'd like to nominate Mustafa Buxmati for external committee.
All right, do you consent to the nomination?
Yes.
Perfect. Does anyone else want to nominate themselves? Yes.
I would like to nominate myself.
It's Lexi?
Yeah.
Perfect. Do we have a second? Penny? Yeah. All right, so that's 2 prospective appointees. Does anyone else want to nominate themselves? Yes?
If I want to resign, can I resign now or after the motion?
You can resign now.
Okay, I resign. So there's 2
from the external committee? Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm sure.
Okay, so there are now 2 seats open on the external committee and 2 applicants. Yes, Eamon?
I'd like to nominate myself.
Okay, there are 3 applicants for 2 seats. Is there anyone else who would like to sit on the external committee? Okay, so based on what we decided at the beginning of the year, it'll be a secret ballot vote. So I will give the opportunity for the 3 candidates to motivate for themselves. So Mustafa, why would you like to be on the external committee?
Great. So, hi everyone, my name is Mustafa. This is my first meeting at the council. So the reason is, well, I was already on the committee. It's just because I got elected here, so I'm not anymore as a student at large. I'm a council member. So ultimately, I lost my seat on the external committee. So I've attended all the meetings that we had before. I do know what the position itself entails as far as sitting on the external committee. The reason why I'm interested in joining the external committee is because of my experience that I have in Concordia with student activism. I'm currently the general coordinator for Solidarity for Palestinian Human Rights, which is a student activism club that talks about, or we raise awareness about the indigenous rights of people in Palestine. I'm also the student representative for Political Science Student Association on ASFES Council, so I do know, I am aware of the different dealings with student politics. Going back to external committee, I do know the ins and outs, passing looking at any budget requisitions, amending them, understanding what exactly are the needs for the different groups that we have on campus or outside of campus, and just figuring out what's the best way possible to aid those groups around our university's community. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, why would you like to be on the external committee?
Yeah, thanks. I'm also brand new and I'm looking to get super involved. My main background is in community organizing, not student politics, and activism. So I've worked with a lot of different groups. I'm also a member of a lot of different groups. I'm very in touch with what's on the scene in Montreal politics right now, what people care about. I'm plugged into lots of community groups. I myself am a member of Food Against Fascism, which serves food to promote anti-racism and anti-oppression. I'm part of Queer Between the Covers, which prioritizes underrepresented voices, and I'm also in Solidarity Across Borders, which is a migrant justice group. So I think I have a good understanding of lots of different issues and issues and struggles, and part of lots of communities. So, yeah.
Alright, thank you. And welcome to council.
Thank you.
David?
Okay. I'd actually like to rescind my candidacy. I feel it really important that the two new councillors actually take spots on committees, and I have a similar background in organizing as Lexi, but not as Mustafa, and I feel it really important that those two different positions both have a strong position on the committee, so I'm going to rescind.
Alright, thank you very much. Sorry, Omar. Okay, so since there's now two applicants for two open positions, you can motivate for some candidates, or we can vote. Rowan. Okay, do we have a second? Omar? Oh, sorry, I thought you were seconding.
Well, I do second.
Okay.
But I wanted to speak.
Okay, Ro, did you want to motivate? Or?
They both seem very qualified and like they care, which is nice.
Thank you. Alright, order please.
So let's walk around. Who are the two candidates?
The two candidates are Lexi and Mustafa.
Okay. The second thing is you all have two paper, or those that are voting. It's because the first one was for external committee and the other one's for Senate, because I assume there may be more than two people. So just one each, not to use both at the same time.
External committee, one person dropped out, so now we don't need to speak about it.
Okay, sure.
So the motion on the table is to omnibus the vote, which means to do both at once. So if there's no opposition or discussion, all those in favor of appointing Mustafa and Lexi to the external committee, please raise your placards. 18, all those opposed? 0, and any abstentions? 0. Perfect. So congratulations, you are now on the external committee. If there's nothing further on this point, we can move to 6G, and I believe Rory, you said you wanted to speak?
Oh, yes, sorry, I just wanted first speaking privilege on this agenda point, because I wanted to take the opportunity to disclose to council a potential conflict of interest, or the potential for a potential conflict of interest. There was a document submitted to council on this agenda point. It is from my girlfriend, my partner. I would like to state for council, however, that what she's proposing in this letter and what that sort of entails in no way benefits her, nor does it benefit me. So therefore, I'm not going to be withholding my comments on this matter, because it's not a conflict of interest. There's no benefit given to her or benefit given to me. If you've read the document, she's just motivating to shift seats in a representative capacity. So with that being said, it's just to let everyone know that that's the reason why I am still going to, speak my opinion on this agenda point. Cool? Thank you.
Thank you. Dylan?
And my inquiry is who stepped down, as well as what is the normal procedures for these seats to be filled?
The person who stepped down's name is Evan Pritchard? Yeah, Pritchie. Sorry if I said that wrong. And he sent me an email. I put it in my report, which I'm sure you guys read. The procedure is basically that there's some seats that are elected through the general election, and then there's some that are appointed. So Evan was an elected seat, leaving the JMSB seat open, but in the standing regs of the CSU, you can appoint through elected seats. So it just says anyone who drops out of Senate, council just appoints someone else. So it doesn't matter if they're elected or appointed. Did you have a follow-up?
I wanted to comment on it, so it's not a follow-up question.
No, you don't have to ask a question.
Oh, perfect. So seeing how it's simply a moving of positions, though, this position wasn't made available to everyone, and the typical fashion would be that it'd be open up to the public to apply, and then appointments committee would then recommend someone. I think that shifting her over does not give other people the chance to come and bring their candidacy forward. And as she is already on Senate, not switching her over at this time will not affect her ability to voice the students' opinions at large.
I'm so sorry, I don't see whose hand that is. Layla. Okay, so I have a speakers list of Ali, Tabia, Rory, and... Oh, sorry.
Tabia's not here.
Oh, sorry, it was you then. Sorry. In that case, Ali, Layla, Rowan, and Rory. Sorry. Ali?
Okay, so I sit on Senate, and her letter was basically to... It's not really shifting anything, it was just pointing out that there is an overrepresentation of JMSB students than any other faculty at Concordia. For example, fine arts students, not many. Engineering, maybe we need more. Just something like that. The idea was not just shifting seats, it was just like, oh, since there are already 4 out of the 11 current and 12 seats, that it should be open to any student. And I 100% am with that.
Thank you. Layla?
Yeah, so I was hoping to speak first actually just to contextualize this a little bit, but it's been done by a few people, but just to summarize more clearly, this came from Tomia, who's a senator and sits on academic caucus, which I share with Asma, and she approached me because typically, due to Evan's resignation, typically the seat is appointed by council, which could come to be understood as council appointing a member of council or council choosing to send it to appointments committee where it's then appointed. But given that it came from a resignation of somebody who was elected, there was a concern, or the concern was raised that because typically when someone resigns from a seat that belongs to a faculty, the person who is appointed to that seat is from the same faculty. The thing that's being raised in the letter that was sent out to counselors is that there are in fact already far more JMSB representatives on academic caucus and therefore Senate than is necessarily representative of students, and this came from a person who is from JMSB, so it's not, I just want to be clear, this isn't like a pushing people out or trying to reduce opportunity. The desire was to make that seat available to all faculties because not all faculties have quite as much representation on academic caucus. And the idea is not to necessarily prevent somebody from JMSB from applying if it goes to appointments committee or from putting themselves forward if it happens at council, but just to make that playing field a little more level given the level of representation necessary at Senate. And I just want to advocate again on that because we do review so many documents to do with course changes, and there's only so much insight one can have coming from one faculty alone. It's impossible for me as someone who comes from fine arts to review stuff pertaining to certain arts and science courses, given that I've never been in that faculty. And we do rely on one another to give input from our given faculty, so it wouldn't just be about representation or fairness, but also in our ability to do our job correctly.
Okay, thank you. Rowan?
I move to send this seat to appointments committee. The empty seat.
Do we have a to send the empty seat?
Just, sorry, to be clear, we have to make it clear whether the seat is open to all faculties or simply JMSB, just because typically it would only be open to, or that it would be preferably given to them, and it would be good to clarify that in the motion, just so appointments committee has some guidelines.
Okay, there's no motion currently on the table. The only thing Rowan said was to send the seat to appointments committee, which should be more specific before we move on something. Because there's technically a shuffle of seats that's proposed and then leaving another seat open, so.
Well, I just want to clarify that the shuffle is like doesn't necessarily need to be acknowledged in that whether or not the senator in question's seat is moved to be the representative seat of JMSB or not doesn't change whether or not council has the power to choose what faculty would be given preference for the seat. So I think for simplicity and clarity's sake, it's not worth getting into whether or not the shift is necessary so much as whether or not the seat should be open to all faculties or not.
Okay.
Okay.
Do you want to keep your?
I move to send this seat to appointments to be open to all faculties.
Okay. Do we have a second? Emmy, your motivation?
Yeah, I think there's been a lot of discussion about that, like keeping a balance between faculties, etc. I don't think it should be appointed from council, namely because there's supposed to be 2 counselors. I think there's currently 4, if I remember correctly, counselors that sit on Senate, which is double the amount by standing regs. JMSB is already like very represented on Senate, which is great. And so I think opening this up to all students, if the best students JMSB, then so be it, is the best option.
Thank you. Omar?
Okay, so actually there's currently 7 counselors out of 10 not counselors, like people that sit on council, because Layla and I are obviously not counselors, but we are on Senate. That being said, every faculty has a minimum of 2, and ENCS currently has 1 seat, so I would like to specifically open this seat to ENCS, so all faculties at least have 2.
Okay, thank you. Dylan?
Well, that's an amendment.
Oh, that wasn't an amendment. Because it would, that's completely,
So that's my second.
yeah, and also because you spoke before.
Okay, so
Motion
Dylan?
to amend it that the seat in question is for JMSB students alone, because the seat that was vacant was a JMSB representative seat on the board.
See, that would be changing the nature of the motion to its opposite, because Rowan specified to open to
So then-
all faculty, so then you can't say open to only some faculties.
So can I say
in the
give
motion.
preferential treatment to JMSB?
You could, yeah.
So that's,
Okay, do we have a second? Awatif,
my
it's not
motivation.
friendly, no, okay, your motivation?
The case is that the student in question, Shomya, is representing students at large. So her faculty does not dictate her views. She's supposed to be representing the students. Now, if you're saying that she is not adequately representing the students, then that was the decision by appointments committee to put her in a student-specific representation seat. That position that Evan Pitchey has resigned from is for JMSB students, and it's to elect someone who is specifically within JMSB to represent their needs and their interests. Shomya would not be fulfilling that role. I'd also like to bring up the fact that when Shomya did run in the election, she did lose. She ran for that position to represent JMSB students, and the students themselves decided to not elect her to be their representative on Senate in the by-election, and that does speak volumes.
Thank you. So I have Rory, and then, sorry, I saw Layla and Ali. Okay, Rory?
Okay, first point here. Just to clarify, based on elections, Shomya lost by a margin of like less than 10 votes. So she was, like, as you could say, runner-up for that exact same position with like the same 150 some votes to be the JMSB senator. Secondly, I want to draw your attention to, and by you I mean council, I want to draw your attention to the second paragraph of her letter, where she says, firstly, I would like to preface my request by expressing that I am both qualified and confident that I can continue to represent students from all faculties on Concordia's Senate. So she's able to represent all faculties. However, her experience is directly related to JMSB. She's been on faculty council. She was VP academic for CASA. She sat on the undergraduate curriculum committee at JMSB. She's been working at JMSB for a number of years. That is her area of expertise. She's literally been on the academic stuff like faculty council, so being on Senate on behalf of JMSB is equally, if not more appropriate. So shifting her under the JMSB seat just opens up the representation for other students to also be represented on Senate. It isn't decreasing JMSB's representation at all. It's not restricting JMSB at all. It's actually better suited for both JMSB students and for all of Concordia.
Okay, thank you. So we're talking about the amendment to Rowan's motion, which is to send to appointments committee, and Dylan moved to amend to add with preferential treatment to JMSB students. Ali?
Okay, a few things. First thing, it doesn't matter whether she lost or not in the elections.
Order, please.
It literally has nothing to do with this conversation. This conversation is specifically about the overrepresentation of JMSB students and the underrepresentation of other faculties. I would like to explain what Senate is exactly. Senate is the academic body of Concordia. Senate is where students work collectively to represent students as a whole. And that means that we need students from every faculty to represent students, not have a bunch of students from one faculty representing their side. We have worked very well together in Senate. And I believe that if we get a voice from a different major, it would be perfect and it would complete us, and we need that. And that is why I believe that it should be open to all majors and all faculties.
Just to clarify that the person who resigned was not the senator who wrote the letter. That was mentioned earlier. I just want to be clear that's not the case here, and we shouldn't be calling into question her ability to serve in her seat. That's not at all what we're talking about now. And ultimately, what students represent on Senate is the needs of all students, and then our expertise is within our own faculty. So I don't think that the argument that's being made is very sound.
Right. Yeah, just to keep on topic, we're on the notion of just preferential treatment to JMSB, so that's all we're talking about. We're not calling into question anyone's abilities to do anything currently. Dylan?
So the makeup of the board is specific so that there is those specialty individuals, and by those specialties are there for certain reasons. It's considered fair representation at the current standing of having a specific amount of positions delegated to each faculty and then students at large. People have been able to fulfill their roles, and it doesn't seem like it has affected in the past anything. It is specifically to stay in line with our bylaws and things that we've all agreed on and that the students have voted on, to have specific representation and specific demographics filled up of these boards. It's keeping in line with it, and that's why it should be held by JMSB, since that is the seat that was vacated.
Great, thank you. Omar?
So I would like to make an amendment
Okay. Yes, sorry.
to open the seat up only to ENCS, because right now that's one faculty that only has one seat, where every other faculty has at least 2 seats.
That would be, that would be completely changing because right now the amendment is to give preferential treatment to JMSB, so you can't like do the opposite and do only to ENCS. Like, you can amend things to change stuff, but you can't like do the opposite.
Can I continue my?
Yeah.
Okay, so because that is the amendment that I would like to make, hopefully this motion will be defeated, so we can create another motion to make this available to ENCS students, if what we're really trying to do.
Michaela, sorry. Okay, so all those in favor of voting on the amendment, not voting for the amendment, we're just calling the question. Does everyone know what that is?
The amendment, it's Dennis, right?
Yes.
The
Okay.
one where he's saying the preference.
Preference for JMSB, yeah. So, let me just explain. You can move to call the question, which means that you want to end debate. So you don't want to hear anyone else talk. And then we vote. There's no talking about stopping talking. So somebody says call the question, somebody seconds, we vote on calling the question. But you're not voting on the motion. You're just voting on the motion. Did I make that clear enough? Okay. So all those in favor of calling the question just on the amendment, please raise your placards. All those opposed, 0, and any abstentions, 1. Okay, so the question's been called, so we'll move to a vote. So all those in favor of tacking on with preferential treatment to JMSB students at the end of Rowan's motion, which is to send the seat to appointments committee, please raise your placards. 1. Okay, is that a 2? Patrick? Okay, 2.
Noted.
Yes, can you just note Dylan's? All those opposed? And any abstentions? 1, 2, 3, 4. Alright, so that amendment is defeated, and we move back to the speakers list on just sending to appointments committee, which is Reed, and then 20 other people. Can you just keep your placards up for a second? Perfect. So Ring, Sophie, someone, and then Sally.
So what's the
It's the appointments committee. So just the motion on the table is just to send this to appointments committee.
No, and open it to all students.
And open it to all students. Sorry.
So points of information.
Mm-hmm.
We have one position for ANCS students and 4 for JMSB right now.
Can someone confirm the composition of Senate? Yes, Ellie?
So we have 4 JMSB students, 4 arts and science, 1 engineering, and 2 fine arts.
Point of information, what is the amount that are JMSB representatives versus engineer representatives versus student at larges? Like,
He's asking the composition. Can somebody just clarify what the composition of Senate is?
I think it's on the CSU website. Can someone check? Yes, can you please just check?
For ASPA, there's 3 people, which is Jonathan, Ali, and Julia. For Fine Arts, it's Michaela and Leila. JMSB is myself, Rory, Shomi, and Steven. ENCS is just Ahmed.
Perfect.
But are they all representing
Sharon. Right, she's asking.
Okay, can somebody just, sorry, I don't know the names of the people on Senate. Can somebody just confirm who the faculty?
The positions, exactly.
Yeah.
So there's 4 on Fine Art, on ASPA. So
point of information, we're saying students who are voted in as students at large on the board versus students who are specifically there to represent JMSB, Fine Arts, engineering, and the other faculties.
In that case, it's just Ahmed Alalou from ENCS, because there were 2 vacant seats for Senate from ASFA and FASA, and JMSB senator has resigned.
Okay, so there's one faculty-specific senator who came in during the elections, and the rest are just appointments.
And how many are supposed to be there
4.
according to our bylaws?
They're supposed to, yeah.
There's, so like 2 from ENCA, 1 from JMSB, and 1 from ASFA?
Yeah. Well, 1 from each faculty.
Yeah. It's one faculty-specific senator per faculty, and then the rest are appointed. Is everyone clear on the composition of Senate?
So also the point of information.
Yes?
Touching the motion that like we're voting on. So are we kind of like saying that we're transforming the JMSB seat into like a student at large seat, or we're transferring?
The motion that's on the table is just to send whichever seat that's open to appointments committee, and that seat be open to anyone.
Right now, the seat that is open is the JMSB one.
Yes.
Okay.
And can somebody just confirm how many seats are open on Senate?
1.
Okay, there we go.
And it was held by someone who was elected specifically to represent JMSB.
Okay.
And now we're opening it up to everyone.
Yes.
It's not for the people in the future, just this year, this next semester.
Yes, every appointment is only one academic year. Okay, so I'm gonna go back to the speakers list. I know there's a lot of questions, but we'll get to them, don't worry. So I have Dylan, Reem, Sophie, Dylan, and Sally. Sorry, Sophie?
Yeah, I'd like to motion to amend the motion, basically to say that there would be preferential treatment to ENCS students because they're the ones who seem the most underrepresented right now.
Okay, do we have a second? Omar, your motivation, which you kind of just said.
Yeah.
Okay, so the amendment on the table is to have preferential treatment given to ENCS students. The speakers list is open. Dylan?
Yeah, as representative of JMSB and adequately oppose this, seeing as the seat was originally intended for a JMSB student, everyone should be, at the minimum, every student should be allowed to apply for it, seeing as you are not willing to make it a JMSB specific seat continuing for the rest of the year.
Okay, so I have a speakers list of Jonathan, Ali, Reem, Michaela, Jared, and Asma. Jonathan?
So I sit on Senate, and one of the, I want to say, issues that we've been dealing with this year has to do with certain professors in the ENCS department not being either engineers or that whole problem. And right now we're having a hard time finding students who are able to talk about this issue, and opening up this seat and giving preferential treatment to someone from ENCS would open up the avenue for us to talk to someone else who would have those point of contacts that could help us with this issue that has been plaguing students in the ENCS for what seems to be a while.
Thank you. Ali?
No one is taking away representation from JMSB, and this must be made clear. JMSB has 4 seats out of 12 seats. This is even more than their student population. So this argument cannot be used. Basically, it's just not right. The other part is, yes, JMSB is underrepresented, and I believe that it is a good idea to give them the priority. And if no one applies for the position from ENCS, it would be open to any other student. And I think that is more than fair.
Thank you. Reem?
2 things. First of all, this position that was held by JMSB, is it the position that you're that you get to through council, or the one that
through general elections?
This is for general elections, and we're
yes, but unlike other sometimes seats on the Senate, you go through elections, and then if somebody quits, council can appoint whoever they want. Like it doesn't matter if it's through elections or through appointments. A vacant seat can always be appointed by council.
And we're appointing today.
No. The motion on the table is to send to appointments committee, and the amendment that we're discussing is to give preferential treatment to ENCS students.
But an appointments committee is gonna get applications for.
Yep. And then they'll make a recommendation, which will be put in a report, which will come to council, which will be approved by council. All good? Perfect. Michaela?
I would like to call a question.
Okay, do we have a second? Omar? All those in favor of calling the question, please raise your placards. 18, all those opposed? 0, and any abstentions? 1. Okay, so the question's been called. So all those in favor of tacking on preferential treatment to treatment to ENCS students at the end of the motion to send to appointments committee, please raise your placards. 17, 18, all those opposed? None, and any abstentions? None. Okay, so that carries and will be added to the end of the motion. Yes, Reem?
Information, when's the deadline of the application?
Veronica?
For Senate,
Yes.
there hasn't been one set, but we can do this right before, like the appointment will be done before the next Senate meeting. So so usually for appointments, we set 2 weeks. So as soon as I post it, which will be tomorrow, students will have 2 weeks to apply, but since it's finals, I'm gonna extend it until like the first week of January, or the first week when we come back.
2 weeks of like working days?
Yes,
So including the Christmas break, that's gonna be counted in those 2 weeks, or a week and then 2 more weeks
No,
in January?
it won't be counted.
All right, so that works. Dylan?
Listen.
Okay, I have a speakers list of Sally, Ali, and then Kemi. Okay, Ali?
Can we follow the question?
Yes. Do we have a second? There is still a speakers list. Okay, all those in favor of calling the question? $16, all those opposed? 0, and any abstentions? 1. Okay, so the current motion on the table is to send the seat to appointments committee and give preferential treatment to ENCS students. All those in favor, please raise your placards. 17, all those opposed?
Noted.
1, yes, and noted, Dylan, and any abstentions? 1, 2, perfect, so that carries. At this point, we are still on Senate. Is there any more discussion to be had? Yes, Kemi?
Yeah, I would like to kind of like have a motion on this, like so that the seat that Shamia is actually sitting on is like the student large seat. I would like to motion that she's transferred on the GMSB seat.
All right, do we have a second? Jonathan?
Just, it doesn't matter at all. It doesn't make any difference whatsoever.
It does not technically, but it does also. Like, it's just the name of the, it's
Okay.
the name of the position.
It's just, even if it's the name of the position, she can't be called an elected member like that.
That's
not possible also.
In the CS, she wouldn't be called an elected member, but in the way that the Senate is done in the standing regulations is that even the elected members, if they resign, their seat can be filled by council. So you don't get to call yourself an elected JMSB senator, but you're the JMSB faculty representative senator. Does that make sense? Okay, it's just the way the standing regs are. I didn't write them. Okay, so do
Point
we
of information,
have a
though.
second? Yes?
Wouldn't she have to resign from her current position as student at large because you can't hold 2 at the exact same time?
Yes, which I believe was in the letter requesting. I mean, we have her written consent that that's what she wants to do, so the same as any appointment, when people send their appointments saying, I want to be this, I consent to that, we have it in a letter. Like, she doesn't have to send me something, like, she basically sent
No,
it to
I'm
me
saying
already,
something.
yeah. So, okay, did we have a second? Ally, your motivation, Kemi?
Yeah, well, considering it's kind of like, especially because we've decided that we wanted to kind of like encourage people from a different faculty to apply, and like that we will just like privilege this faculty in particular, it would just make more sense that the seat that is usually open as student at large is the one that we're filling in now, and not the current one that is the JMSB one that is currently open. So yeah, it's just a question of kind of making more thing a bit more formal and kind of simple.
Okay, thank you. Ali?
I just wanted to point out that the only, like if any elected member not from council was removed from Senate, that we would have to appoint someone in their place. But if it's someone from council, we would choose someone from council. So that's like the difference between both. So it just does, personally, I find that it doesn't really make a difference. If you guys want to make it like a formal thing, I mean, go ahead and do it, I don't mind. But it just really doesn't make a difference. It's just the point was to open up seats for other students, which is what happened.
Great, thank you. Reem, Asma is your hand. Yeah. Oh, sorry, okay. Reem and then Asma, and then Sally.
Is there a motion on the table?
Yep, it's to have Shamia, who wanted her seat switched from student at large to JMSB, to do that.
So I can't make another motion?
Not a separate motion, no. Like if you had an amendment, you could add it, but
It's
yeah.
different though.
Okay.
Can I move my speaking rights down to the list? Like after,
Yeah, I can put,
after
yeah.
the motion is
Yeah,
done?
that's fine. Asma?
Yeah, I think although it won't make a difference in terms of Shawmia's functioning at Senate, I think definitely the clarity for some in terms of what the seat represents does matter, and I think it's important to recognize that. So although, I mean, I think that's what Shawmia recognized when she put that in the letter. She said, you know, could I switch the seat in that respect? So maybe she won't be recognized as an elected member, but as a, you know, as a faculty member who's representative. I think that's important to take into context. I'm sure Shamia thought about it before she put that in. So it's important to recognize the, you know, the thought that goes into it, and it's more coherent too. So she's still the senator, she's still, you know, a valuable member of the Senate, she's credible, but she's doing something that makes a little more sense in terms of, you know, coherence.
Okay, thank you. Sally?
Can I call for a question?
There's no one on the speakers list. So, unless anyone.
Call questions by all means.
Okay, oh sorry, I didn't see your placard then. Okay, so if nobody has anything else to discuss with the seat switching, all those in favor of having Shamia's seat as a student at large fill the seat as JMSB, please raise your placards. 12, all those opposed? 0, and any abstentions? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Perfect, so that carries, and we're back on the main speakers list, which is Reed.
I'd like to make a motion that contradicts the previous motion. So basically I'd like to appoint myself to the position of Senate. But we already...
You would have to move to rescind something previously adopted before doing it.
Okay, I move to rescind the motion.
Okay.
Of sending the appointment to the appointments committee.
Okay, do we have a second?
I have a personal privilege.
Yes.
It's really late, and I feel like this is not the time to be doing this. I don't know if this is the correct use of personal privilege. Can't even talk right now. We have a lot of things to do, and I just don't think this is the time to be changing anything or making other appointments.
Well, it hasn't gotten a second. How is it? Okay, your motivation, Reed?
I'm an ENCS student, and I'm involved with what's happening with students in software engineering and computer engineering, so I think I would be a good candidate for this position.
Okay, so there's a motion on the table. It's not to appoint Reem, it's to reverse a decision previously adopted by council. Yes, Ali?
As great as it is that an engineering member is wants to appoint themselves to the seat, I think it's a better thing that we have students from outside that could apply. And I mean, obviously because you're on engineering, you would, like this counselor would be able to get people that they trust and that could do that, since they already have a role within the CSU, and it's a very important role, but I feel like it's more like bombarding Senate with counselors, and we should remove Senate from council a little bit. I just find that important.
Yes?
Point of information on, can a counselor apply for appointments committee to sit for that seat?
Yes, absolutely.
I guess that's a yes.
Yes.
Can I be added to the speakers list?
Yeah. There's just Veronica on the speakers list, and then you.
So as I was going to say, actually, any counselor could apply to appointments if they wish to sit on a seat that isn't necessarily for counselors. So in this case, if we don't want to vote today, the counselor could send their application to appointments committee.
Right, thank you. Awatu?
Yeah, I was just gonna recommend to Reem if that'd be fine to go
I'd
into.
like to rescind my
I
motion.
got a second, so you can't just call it back. Can we all in unanimity move to lay this aside?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, so that's all good. There is no more speakers list on Senate. So we can move to 7A, which is living wage. which was sent by Veronica.
No, it was not, but I would like to table this until January.
Okay, do we have a second? Sophie, all those in favor of tabling, please raise your placards. 16, all those opposed? And any abstentions? 0. Okay, so I see that people are looking into tabling things. If anyone wants to table more than one thing, or just state as executives the things that you sent to me and want to table, please let me know. Veronica?
Yes, we would like to table 8D, 8F, so interim finance coordinator pay.
Okay. Do we have a second? Rory, all those in favor of tabling, please raise.
In omnibus?
That's what I was hoping, but it didn't happen. After, just because that was Veronica's one table. All those in favor? 18, all those opposed, and any abstentions? 1, 2. Okay, so that's tabled. Can anyone table more than one thing at once? Awatu.
It's actually, yeah, actually I can do both. I'm tabling 7B and 8H.
Okay, so that's clubs and internal and clubs report. Okay, do we have a second? Reem, all those in favor of tabling the point called clubs and the point called internal and clubs report, please raise your placards. 18, all those opposed, 0, and any abstentions. Okay, because I don't want people tabling other people's motions and then we have to argue about it.
Email was sent to her with the rooms booked. She has expressed her concern regarding that to me, so I'm letting chair and executives know about that. So please send this information to her. She doesn't have access to internet in the coming week, or I don't know how many weeks. So it would be great if executives or chair can give her the dates in a sheet of paper.
Oh yeah,
she
sure.
leaves.
Yeah, I can print it out.
Thank you.
Not today specifically, but I can give it to an exec to print it out.
I'll just print it
Not a
out.
problem, yeah. All right, so glad that's resolved. Anything else on that point? Okay, so 7D election. Sophie?
Yeah, I'm just gonna, Sophie did that for me. Basically, I was gonna do a whole spiel, I'm not going to. All I'm gonna say is that I wanna do some major changes to the election process and procedures. So this is just informational. If anybody's interested, contact me. I wanna make an ad hoc committee about it. Just think about it over break. We'll come back to it in January.
All right, thank you. So 8A, this one's an important motion. Mid-mandate reports. Rowan, this is yours.
I'll try to make this quick. Whereas point 402 of the CSU standing regulations states the executives must submit a joint written mid-mandate report to council no later than the first January regular meeting, etc., and it goes on with stuff that isn't directly relevant to this motion. Is that okay if I skip the rest?
Did we all read the motion?
Yeah.
Okay.
Of course.
Well,
Be it resolved that point 402 of the CSU standing regulations be amended to state the executives must submit a joint written mandate report to council no later than the second January regular meeting.
all right, do we have a second? Kenny, your motivation?
Yeah, so this was something that's been done multiple times in the past and was sent to policy committee, and just one of those things that got lost in the process, I'm guessing. Essentially, the executives would have to have their mid-mandate reports done by January 10th, which means that they would either write it in 2 days, which is not enough time, or they would simply have to do it over break. The executives have worked hard this year. I think they actually deserve a holiday break, and therefore I think it's appropriate and doesn't really have any serious negative effects if we simply delay the mid-mandate reports to the second January meeting, make it a permanent change, because we may as well just get this done. Yeah.
All right, thank you. Is there any discussion to be had? Okay, standing reg changes, 2/3 majority. All those in favor, please raise your placards. 18, all those opposed, 0, and any abstentions? 0. Perfect. So that carries. Anything else on mid-mandate reports? Okay, so we have 8B, which is BDS occupation, and Amen. Your motion, please.
All right, I'm just gonna read the motion first,
Yep.
and then so whereas
As is correct procedure.
yeah, sorry, it's late. So whereas the Concordia Student Union has by referendum adopted the position to, quote, endorse the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement against Israel's occupation of Palestine, end quote, from the CSU Positions Book 8.1. Whereas the United States has acted to recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, be it resolved that the Concordia Student Union condemn this action and any similar ones in Canada. Be it further resolved that the Concordia Student Union support efforts in Montreal and abroad against the occupation of Palestine organized in response to this action and any of a similar nature.
Okay, do we have a second? Jonathan, your motivation?
So we already have a sort of blanket position on the books relating to this. There have been a lot of demonstrations cropping up, particularly in response to this recognizing by the U.S. government of Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. And I know that it's like an international affair or whatever, and we're a student union. We are a student union. We have political stances. Those are important, and this move, even though it's not even within our own country, impacts a whole bunch of students at our school. And I'm sure that anybody else in the room would be happy to speak more to the spirit of the motion.
Right. I have the speakers list of Awatif, Sally, and Daniel. Is that a placard or you're just okay? Awatif. Awatif.
Yeah. Can I make an amendment?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Be it resolved that the Concordia Student Union, in collaboration with other unions in Montreal, writes a letter of condemnation and a condemnation of these actions and sends it to, a government body.
Okay, we need to word our motions more specifically before we say them.
Someone want to help?
Yeah.
Ali?
The foreign minister, the federal government, just send it to them. Yeah, I think that's the best.
American ambassador.
Why not both?
We don't think Trudeau, I don't know if that's possible. That's possible? To the Prime Minister? Can you
I
say?
think it's better, so more relevant to the foreign minister.
Okay, so is that okay?
I'll accept that.
Okay. All right, do we have a second? Reem, your motivation?
Yes, I think as the motion says at the beginning that the CSU will condemn this action, but making substantive action with this in writing a letter and in collaboration with other unions that have the same beliefs as the CSU will make a bigger impact, will make a bigger voice than just the CSU condemning it. That's one, and that the movement against there's a movement that's been mobilized in Montreal against President Trump calling calling Jerusalem as the capital of Israel is growing, and by this letter it's gonna support the movement more and more. So I think it's very much needed.
Great, thank you. Can the amendment be considered friendly, or is there opposition? Okay, so the amendment can be considered friendly and tacked on to the end of the motion, and back to the main speakers list, which is Sally, Eamon, and maybe Rowan. Okay, Sally?
Well, thank you for bringing this up. I'm from Palestine, and I feel the people there. I feel very sad seeing that, and I believe CSU should always do that and always talk about Palestine and BDS and all these things. Good job, honestly, CSU.
Thank you. Eamon?
I'd like to bring an amendment to it.
Okay.
Be it further resolved that the external coordinator is mandated to, I'm trying to find the word, work on.
Do what?
Yeah, huh? Yeah, just do it, do what's required to, I don't know.
Part of his duties or
Yeah, just that the external coordinator is mandated to work on this.
Okay.
So like, Awatif's motion is the external coordinator's responsibility.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, before we bring amendments and motions, can we just say them in our heads once so that this doesn't happen? Thank you. Okay, so be mandated to work on this?
Mandated to be the one writing the letter.
Okay.
And
collaborate on it. Yeah.
Just got a question.
Yes?
I just wanted to ask everyone, is that for a working group? Is that for a campaign? Do you have something specific in mind? Because that could change the nature of how it's, the scale at which it's taken.
I think that the positions we have on the book would already allow for, any sort of campaigning or anything to be done with this, so.
Okay, thank you. Rory?
I know I've made this mistake a few times myself, but I just want to remind council that we are able to give action items to executives without having to go through the whole process of making a motion and seconding, and then if you can just ask them as councillors in front of council on record, could you do this? If Ahmed's like, yeah, sure, no problem. We don't need to motion it and go through. Everyone's just okay with it. It's consensual decision making. Move forward. Things are quicker.
Okay. Do we have a second for the amendment? Sorry, Reem. Do you want to motivate, Eamon?
I don't know. I think it kind of speaks for itself.
Okay. Can it be considered friendly, or is there any opposition? Okay. So we go back. Yeah, you're next on the speakers list. So we go back to the main list, which is Sally and then Eamon.
So I want to mention something else. As you know, AVIC is coming their Congress. So be it resolved, CSU proposes BDS to AVIC Congress in January.
Okay. Do we have a second? What's it? Do you want to motivate?
Well, why not?
Okay. Can the amendment be considered friendly? So it's that the CSU proposes BDS to AVEC Congress in January. Okay. So that can be considered friendly. Is there any more discussion on the motion? Because there's no speakers list. Yes, Awatu?
Okay, never mind.
Okay, Reem?
What's the question?
There's no one on the speakers list, so. Okay, so with that, that's the motion and the three amendments, which are, well, Rowan's motion, and then be it further resolved that the CSU collaborate with other unions in Montreal to write a letter of condemnation of these actions and send it to the Minister of Foreign Affairs. Second amendment is be it further resolved that the external coordinator be mandated to work on this letter. Be it resolved that the CSU proposes BDS to AVEC Congress in January. All those in favor, please raise your placards. 16, all those opposed? 0, and any abstentions? 1, 2. All right, so that carries. Is there any more discussion to be had on 8B? Okay, so we can move on to 8C, which is Library Services Fund Referendum, and this is Veronica's motion.
Whereas the agreement between the CSU and the Concordia Library to create Library Service Fund expires in 2019, whereas in order to renew this agreement, a question would need to be run the 2018 CSU general elections, whereas according to Standing Regulation 252, whereas the deadline for submitting the petition and other supporting documents has passed, meaning that this question would not be able to be put forward. Be it resolved that the deadline for submitting the application be extended until the first Monday of February. Be it further resolved that an ad hoc committee be formed to assist in the preparation of such an application.
All right, do we have a second? Kemi, your motivation?
Yeah, so in Standing Regulation 252, the Library Service Fund was supposed to submit an application the first Monday of December, which has passed, and this is for a general election, which is surprisingly super early. So this is just to move the deadline to February. The Library Service Fund is a super important committee fund. They provide us with our beautiful library and give us all the services that we all use as students. So,
all right, thank you. Is there any discussion to be had on the Library Services Fund referendum? Okay, so all those in favor, please raise your placards. 15, all those opposed? 0, and any abstentions? 1, 2, 3. Perfect, so that carries. Is there anything else to be discussed on Library Services Fund referendums? Okay, so if not, we can move on to 8D, which is inappropriate use of CSU credit card. And Sophie, this is yours. Just a reminder, new counselors, we always read the motion first and then get into discussion.
Okay, so whereas there has been $972.06 in Uber trip expenses and $34.25 in Uber Eat expenses on the CSU credit card since June 1st, whereas the CSU credit card is attached to the general coordinator's personal Uber account bypassing the CSU policy on check reimbursement, whereas point 17 of the CSU Ethics and Sustainability Policy states when sponsoring the travel of CSU members to events in other cities, the CSU shall encourage the use of train and bus transportation whenever possible. Be it resolved that the CSU limit their use of Uber as much as possible. Be it further resolved that 100% of the expenses be moved to the general coordinator's discretionary fund unless proven to be relevant to another budget line. Be it further resolved that Omar Riaz's personal Uber account remove the CSU credit card as a method of payment. Be it further resolved that CSU credit card not be used for Uber until a proper procedure is put in place. Be it further resolved that CSU Council of Representatives encourages the sole use of the credit card for expenses where reimbursement is not a practical option. Be it further resolved that Omar Riaz be warned against inappropriate use of the CSU credit card.
Right, do we have a second? Ali, your motivation, Sophie?
Basically, I was interested in finance committee, and so I was talking to Veronica one day when we found we got this credit card statement for November, and it looked like there was a ton of Uber expenses. So we went through all of the past things and put together like an Excel spreadsheet because there was a lot of Uber expenses, which didn't make sense to us. A little bit of sleuthing went on. We found out whose account was connected to the credit card. And while the CSU sustainability policy states that we encourage bus and train travel to other cities, I don't see why we would make that different between Concordia and Berry-UQAM. There's also a proper policy that's been put in place. So like when you have an expense to be overseen, there's a check reimbursement policy. By attaching the accounts just to an Uber, you I'm trying to find the right word. You basically like surpass the proper policy to oversee your reimbursements. And yeah, that's kind of that. I think it's really inappropriate to be using the CSU credit card in a way that students can't see where their money is going.
Great, thank you. Veronica?
Yeah, so I would just like to state that in the last few days I have been trying to track down every single transaction that has been processed on our credit card, some of which have been successfully kind of tracked down onto who and for why they were purchased, but it's not a significant amount. So it's been used once or twice by our general manager and by our T director at a time. But again, this does not explain the rest of this. Yes.
Thank you. Dylan?
How large is the discretionary account budget line?
Do we have a direct? Veronica?
It's $625.
Thank you.
Per executive, yeah.
Okay. Rory? Awati?
Yeah, I was just wondering when this process of finding those details and writing this motion and investigating executives and staff and finding that it was the general coordinator's account that was related to the card, did by any chance counselor and executives speak to the general coordinator about this? Or was this just made together and just put here to council before speaking to the person that was being investigated?
No, I did speak to him. I sent also an email to all the executive to ask if anybody else has been using it. I also asked every service coordinator if they've used it. I've asked the general manager who else has access to it. The general coordinator has told me that they have used and it is attached to their credit card. The reason why we submitted this motion so quickly was because we did not want to do a redo of SUDS that happened, where counselors got the documents literally the day of, and there was a lot of confusion. So this motion is open to amendments, obviously, as more information comes to light. But yeah, so this is why it was sent out so quickly.
Thank you. So I have a speakers list of Sally, Omar, Sophie, and I saw another placard. Sorry, when you guys do this, I might not catch you. Read. Sally?
Can you go further into the money behind it? I didn't understand.
Can you clarify?
Yes. So what we've requested today with the bank is essentially contesting the transaction so that they could provide us with more information as to where it came from. This is because I don't have any receipts with anything. Sule, the previous finance coordinator, he implemented this policy where whenever we use a credit card, we're supposed to attach receipts with it. This hasn't been done. This has been done maybe twice by the IT director and by the general manager.
But you didn't talk about the money. Can you talk about the money, like how many in Uber, and you said $900 somewhere? Can you explain it more?
Yeah, it's in the documents. Do you want to just clarify quickly?
Yeah, so just really quickly, there's supporting documents. I put together an Excel transcript that goes through the months of June to November. It details every single Uber transaction and the budget line it was put under, except for November, which I didn't have the budget line information yet for. And there's also supporting documents where we go through each of the the scanned documents that you can see, which I tried to highlight them on like an Adobe Illustrator, and it was difficult to do that without just redacting the information that was important to people. So you have to scan a little bit, which is why I made the Excel sheet so it was more upfront.
No, can I ask another question?
Is it quick?
Quick one, yeah.
Okay.
Like how many in Uber? We're talking about Uber, like how many?
I'm talking about like in November there was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Which totaled just over $200. And in total, since the beginning of mandate, it was over $900, including in Uber Eats, it was over $1,000.
Same person.
We're not sure because we have no receipts, but because we do know that the credit card was attached to the personal account of the general coordinator, that's why we've chosen this method in that budget line, because we can't find the proper budget line as proper procedures weren't followed.
All right, just have a
Thank you.
small question.
Omar? Yep.
I just wanted something clarified. I thought it was linked to, like the credit card was used by different people at the same time, or unless I'm mistaken.
Okay, yeah,
It wasn't
Omar,
clear,
can you,
because like there's the GM and then someone else?
can you just say who's the users of the credit card?
Yeah, so far it's Omar and GM. That's it.
All right,
And
thank
the
you.
IT?
He doesn't work for us anymore, so it is not linked.
All right, Omar?
Okay, so I was asked about the charges, and I said that they were from NASCO. Before that, actually, I have been printing out all the receipts that I've used for Uber and giving to Sule, which obviously cannot be fined, and he was also not contacted to find those receipts. That being said, I have printed out again every time I've used an Uber. It has the address to and from, the times that I took it, and the amount that it cost. That being said, it does come out to approximately $450. That being said, from those $450, there are several that were done for council purposes. For example, people leaving from council, councilors going back to the CSU offices. If I was to say discretionary that I use for personal use would be $120. Maybe 4 times that I went from my house to the CSU because I was running late or it was a meeting that I had to be for at a particular time. That being said, I do see in the motion that it says that unless otherwise justified, so I am able to provide to you these by tomorrow morning. I could have done that earlier, but I found it a little bit disrespectful that these were sent so quickly to council without allowing me to provide these charges. That being said, those that I cannot provide should be claimed as fraud to the credit card company. So I am willing to 100% go through my Uber account. Actually, I've already done that, but I just waited today before letting council know. So it's also not, I didn't use the CSU credit card to bypass the check rec policy. It was just easier for me to print it after and give it to Sule instead of having to request a check rec for every $20 that I use every single time.
Great, thank you. Sophie?
Yeah, so I've worked with like MAs and ASFA before, so maybe it's a little different with the CSU check recs, but usually rather than just asking for $20 every time, you wait until you have a certain amount and then you submit a check rec for a certain amount of period, a certain like amount of money, which is why I find it a little difficult because yes, he did bypass, and I'm sorry.
Address the chair, please.
Oh, sorry. Yes, the general coordinator did bypass the check requisition, and it might have been easier to print after the fact, but that doesn't take away the fact that the process was still bypassed in such a way that they could have done it from their own personal credit card, and it could have been done in such a way that they didn't end up in the situation using the CSU credit card in such a manner.
Thank you. Reed?
I'd just like to point out that, correct me if I'm wrong, my understanding, the necessary steps haven't been taken. The previous finance coordinator hasn't been contacted yet. Not enough investigation has been done, and yet we have a motion on the table. How I see it, this could have been, first of all, council could have been notified without having this motion, and more investigation should be put into something before having a motion with multiple clauses, be it further resolved, be it further resolved. So, before jumping to conclusions, there should be like due diligence from the people who find out there's something wrong. I'm not saying there's nothing wrong. Of course, when you see like a weird amount that we don't have the right claims, or we don't follow procedure, of course you should follow this. But before having this whole motion, you should really go into the investigation, have all the information, before even starting to write the motion, and ask all the parties, get everyone involved, counselors, executives, start a conversation, have all the information, and then do your motion. So this is my input on this.
Thank you. Rory?
Okay, so as a signing officer, maybe I can provide a little bit of context here and maybe my opinion. Just to respond to what Reem has said, my interpretation of this motion is that the expenses will be moved to the GC's discretionary fund unless proven to be relevant to another budget line. So we're basically saying, like, if proof can be provided afterwards, if receipts are submitted that say it's for council or for other people, then that's fine, it'll be moved after. It's not saying we're blaming that one person for all these charges, but it is acknowledging that that credit card was placed onto a personal Uber account. All of these Uber charges have been racked up. No one else has claimed them. The procedure for using like I remember when I came in as a signing officer and I got this big check to pay the credit card bill, and I'm sitting there like, how am I signing off on $6,000 to pay Desjardins when I don't know what we're paying for? And I'm looking at the credit card statement and I'm saying, I don't have any CSU form that says coming out of X budget line incurred by X exec. And I remember asking the finance coordinator, how does this work? What's the procedure? And he said, well, someone wants to use a credit card, they go to Robert, they get some approval, but they don't need to submit the receipts afterwards. And that's the difference, is that using the credit card allows you to incur an expense before proving it was a relevant expense, compared to afterwards, which is you must provide that receipt to prove it was a relevant expense before the CSU incurs it or the CSU pays it out. So that's the issue here, is that until those things can be proven, until we can retroactively try and follow our procedure for accountability and have receipts provided, these should be moved into the fund where they are most appropriate. And as of right now, if the credit card is linked to a personal Uber account, then the most appropriate budget line for them to be placed under, again, until proven otherwise, should be the discretionary fund.
Thank you. Kathy? Okay, Mustafa?
Oh yeah. Okay. I think it was a point of information. Actually, I don't. I just want to ask: do we, as counselors, have access to all these information that have been provided to us? Like on.
Yes. No, as in.
No. As in, like, no. I know it was sent out, but like, how did? Can I, as a counselor, get all these information that were provided, such as like? The bank statements and whatnot on any credit card, like, are they?
Nod your head louder.
Yes. So anybody could walk into the office and request this statement or that statement and look at every receipt, this is student money and we're a public company.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
In fact, it's your job to do so.
Ahmed B.
You have my name, right?
Yep, you're next. Yep, you're
I had an experience using the CSU credit card once, and there was one account twice. The first time I used the CSU, I want to rent a car and again book a room in a hotel. And the second time where I had an experience using the CSU, once I sent an email asking for clarification, there was an amount of $60 charges on the CSU credit card, and we weren't sure who did use it. And after having an investigation, I believe that was in October, they figured out that it was for a parking ticket that I received while traveling on a back conference, and this was charged to my discretionary budget. So again, so I was tracking the credit card. I'm not sure about the November transactions, but I'm giving my testimony using the CSU credit card, and it's not only limited to Omar or anyone else. Anyone can walk to Robert and ask him for the credit card, and we have to justify. And from my own experience, so I was alert, and he used to send emails when it comes to expenses.
Okay, thank you. Sally? Okay. I don't know how I'm gonna say that. Okay, impressive. We took our time. We monitored someone. We micromanaged. We looked into his account. All of our account, $900. Okay, it's something good. Good job. But then, is this CSU? This is where we want to be? like looking around, like, oh, you did this, oh, no, you didn't do that. Okay, that's part of our job. But instead of having these motions about Palestine or other motions about sustainability or composting or these things, that's what I signed for. But every single time I come here, it's just picking on someone and picking on someone or someone else, and honestly, that's not what I signed up for. Okay, maybe there's a mistake, but he tells you he used it, other one used it. Instead of pointing fingers and saying he did it, Omar, more than once in the motion. Instead of doing that, just make your investigation, make sure before doing anything of that. Honestly, like it's unfair, honestly.
Rowan?
Yeah, I'd like to say a few things. First of all, I'd like to make clear, like, we're talking about $1,000 of student money where there's like confusion on like discontent over how this money was managed as council and as a board of directors of a legal company. Like, this is our responsibility. This is what we're here for. I'd also like to kind of like comment off some of what Ahmed said of like, and explain to council why the credit card would be used for something. It'd be something like the example was given of getting a hotel room where it's like you have to pay $300 up front. We can't necessarily expect an executive to just be able to drop that kind of cash, so the CSU credit card would be used. It's for those kinds of big purchases where like an executive cannot be expected to front that cash in one go. It's not for like $18 Uber rides, which is what we see it being used for here. So like, if you look at the motion, a lot of these are, like a lot of the be resolves are like the credit card be removed from the general coordinator's Uber account, it not be used for an Uber account until a procedure is put in place, encouraging things about sustainability, etc. The warning against inappropriate use of the CSU credit card. This is inappropriate use of this like credit card according to like what I just explained. It's not large purchases that can't be spent out of pocket. This is like small things. The next point, or going to one of the first, be it resolved, the 100% of expenses, as was kind of touched on, this is like, we move it into discretionary, and then general coordinator can say like, look, I spent, he says $450 approximately, he pulls out the receipts, the rest of it isn't under his discretionary. And then he can say, look, this one was for like Councillor Gadet to go back to his apartment after this council meeting, that one's put under local travel, et cetera, which is the process for doing checks originally. Like, if this had gone through due process of check requisitions, this would have been done before the money ever left the CSU account. But because that hasn't been done and it's all just been filed under local travel, now we have to go back and do it.
Thank you. I have a speakers list of Omar, Sophie, Awitzif, Ahmed, Jay, Dylan, Michaela, Ali, Kathy, and Sally. Omar?
So it's not about what's being done, it's about how it's being done. Not every time does it have to come out to council, because it is starting to get misleading. It is accusatory, although I appreciate that councilors has clarified that it's not the intention. And I also do recognize that there are other ways to do it, to actually spend the money up front and then to get reimbursed. But quite honestly, that just adds more work for myself. And I have to wait, because at most time what happens is that 2 signing officers are not there, so I have to wait for my check longer than anyone else's. And that's a fact. I've waited up to 3 months for a $5,000 check, which I've incurred interest on my own credit card that I've not asked for a reimbursement for. So yeah, there is a reason that I didn't spend the money first, use a CSU credit card, but it was still clear where the money went. The second thing is, I fully recognize that it shouldn't be in local travel, put it in my discretionary. I haven't used any of it otherwise. It's all for, again, council food that is in my discretionary. Go look, is there a coffee that I bought for myself? No, that's not what you're gonna find. So that being said, again, also the credit card was used from July to August. There's more than 1 or 2 charges. There's at least 20 charges. And I put the credit card on my Uber account in August 21st, the day that I was going for SUDS, because I knew that there would be multiple credit card usage. And that's why I put it on there. So that being said, what about from May to mid-August? What about all those charges that are there? So further to that, maybe I would like to amend the motion to actually cease using the credit card, because there's no real policy for the credit card. Like, I understand that it does make sense that they're used for large purchases, but that's not the case right now. It's assumed, but it's not set out. So especially because we are in the break, I would like to amend the motion that the CSU cease to use the credit card until a policy is put in place, maybe an amount, and actually be sent to the finance committee to decide an amount over which you can use the CSU credit card. Anything under that amount shouldn't be used for council purposes.
I'll have to put you at the bottom of the speakers list if you want to amend it, because you already spoke for a while, but, or somebody else can amend depending. Sophie?
Yeah, I mean, as the motion states, it is intended to, once proven, be moved. I think that's been mentioned a few times now, but right now it's not stated, it is assumed, so you're right, it should be amended. I'm also, this is my first council meeting, so questions about procedure and going forward with this. I found something, it was recently elected, I followed a thread. I apologize if you don't think I did my due diligence, but I worked very hard. I talked to people. There was investigation that goes on. Have I talked to every single person? No. Is that maybe not humanly possible at this point in time? Absolutely. That said, I don't think it's micromanaging when it's over $900 of spending that we don't, as of right now, have receipts for everything. Yeah, furthermore, it was mentioned by the general coordinator that not going through the proper check requisitions meant more work and more waiting. I feel like as an executive, that's sort of part of the job, and I think that's where I'm going to leave it.
Thank you. Awatu?
Yes. I'd like to echo the sentiments made by Reem and by Sally about the need for full investigation to should have happened before this motion coming forward. And with a full investigation, I mean that when you have a concern about one single executive, that executive needs to be included in the discussion. So at least, without wasting time here, he could have actually explained it there. And then if other concerns by councillor are there, it could be brought back to council. I know, as the councillor has mentioned, that she was working with the executive here, and the executive should have known that this is not the way to do such a thing. I understand that the councillor is new here to council, but the executive is not. Now, moving everything to the discretionary fund of the executive is not right, because I feel like I heard that some of the expenses were for councillors, not for his personal use. So moving it to the discretionary fully is kind of arbitrary until we do have a full investigation and full amount for every single thing. And lastly, I feel like, can I just say one motion? Mm-hmm. I feel like the motion doesn't stand strong because some of the stuff that are mentioned there are not right. The 900, it looks like the general coordinator has used $972.06 for Uber, and he's saying he didn't. So I would encourage the councillors to vote it down. Maybe some of the be results are important, I agree. Some of the be resolved there that the credit card be moved, the CSU credit card be not used for Uber, I agree for that. Maybe that could be put separately, but the beginning makes the motion not stand strong. It accuses the executive of doing something he's saying he did. Unfortunately.
Ahmed J.
Okay, yeah, like every month we have like 2 or 1 meeting, and we have like 6 hours, and like every time like there is like an investigation about somebody or someone, and I feel that we're wasting a lot of time by doing this. And like we have a lot of points that we're not able to cover at the end of the meeting, and I think this is not productive. And on the other hand, like I don't want, like maybe it will be better to do like policy if there is any rules that doesn't work out or something. I think this will be better than accusing anyone that in the room. And something else is that we have like limited time, and everybody has about 5-6 hours every month to spend to take major decision. And if we spend time to to do an investigation about one person, I think it will be counterproductive.
Thank you. Michaela?
No.
Okay, the speakers list. Oh, okay. Well, Well, it was Michaela, Ali, Kathy, Sally, Reem, Omar, Rory.
What about myself? I was on the list.
Oh, sorry, Dylan, Michaela. Sorry, you were actually first. My apologies. It was Dylan, Michaela, Ali, and Kathy, but now that's moot, so Dylan.
I'd like to modify the motion to what Omar had mentioned previously. I'll let him say the motion again. The modification.
Be it further resolved that the CSU cease to use a credit card until finance policy comes up with a credit card policy, which would include the amount over which the credit card could be used for, and for which types of purchases.
A typical way to do a motion, but do you consent to that?
Yep.
Okay, let's try not to do that as a rule. Awatif, you second?
Yes.
Okay, your
And
motivation?
I'd like to be added to the speakers.
Okay, your motivation?
There clearly seems that the motion before us wasn't investigated to its fully, and I understand that there was good intentions behind it. Until these discrepancies can be solved, it seems that the CSU does have control deficiencies and high risk of fraudulent transactions through this credit card, and without an appropriate policy, it should be stopped to be used immediately.
Okay. Discussion, Awatif, and then Rory.
Yes.
And Ali.
Is this
Sorry?
in addition to the current motion, or is this a
No, it's
change?
to send it away, like to send it to policy committee, basically.
To send this motion to policy committee?
Sorry, could you just repeat
No.
the exact wording?
Be it further resolved,
Oh, sorry, that was.
yeah.
I don't
So
have
it says, be it further resolved that the CSU credit card no longer be used for Uber until a proper procedure is put in place. To amend that, be it resolved, say that the CSU credit card not be used at all until a proper procedure is put in place, and the procedure would include the amount which the credit card could be used for, and the type of purchases the credit card could be used for, and what the process is to go about using the credit card.
Then
Could you post that in the group? It's hard to.
It's in my handwriting,
Oh, okay.
but I'll write it in.
Or can you?
I can maybe like say some thoughts.
Okay, Awatif, did you have any other questions?
Yeah. Am I added to the speakers list for discussion, or was it just point of?
Well, no, it was you.
Yeah, it was me. Okay. I just feel like the whereases put together makes it look like that the executive has used all this money to do something that he didn't do. So I would recommend that the whereases be taken out, removed, or edited somehow, and I would leave it to the counselor who wrote this to decide for herself. But this is a recommendation from me. Having that whereas at the beginning saying that amount of money, and then another whereas saying that general coordinators is the one that has the CSU credit card. Make it, even though it doesn't say, but it makes it look like that the general coordinator has used all that money. So I would recommend that that's be removed.
Point of order, we're discussing Dylan's amendment.
Yeah. She's just making a recommendation. It's not like an amendment to an amendment. No, it's just a, yeah.
I'm not making a move.
Okay.
You're next.
I thought her point was about the previous motion, not the amendment. But-
I'm waiting to see the wording of the amendment.
That was my concern. So I'm just gonna say, this amendment can't pass. We actually, like as a signing officer, we actually do use our credit card for things like paying, regular bills. So just like automatically saying stop use the credit card is an issue. I actually tried to do that when I first came on as a signing officer and saw that there's like a $6,000 check to pay it, and I couldn't ascertain what those amounts were. I told Robert, I'm not signing it. I don't care how much interest. I'm not signing it until we can prove exactly what those things are. And we actually couldn't do that because we needed to be able to use our credit card. So let's please just accept that as true and move on with something else more productive, because that just should not be an option.
Okay.
I think you should read the motion which clarifies what you just said.
As I understand it, it's to limit the use, to not use credit cards.
Yeah, because the current amendment on the table, as Omar put in the group, is that the CSU credit card not be used at all until a credit card usage policy is created by FinCom. But if there's something that says that you can't not use the credit card, then we need to be aware of that.
Be it further resolved that the CSU credit card not be used at all, other than monthly subscription charges, which is what you're mentioning, that we cannot stop using it, because MailChimp and so on go through regularly.
You just added those.
Yeah, that's
Well,
not
I added
in
it
the
before you
motion.
mentioned the point, because I added it before you mentioned the point, but it does make sense as to why you're doing that.
Okay, so you added it in writing and
Right,
verbally.
right.
Okay, let's try to avoid amending things on the fly. But technically, the amendment was made in good faith with the intention of clarifying the motion. Can we all accept that other than monthly subscription charges be a thing? Okay, perfect. Okay, so we're still on the amendment as is written in the Facebook group. So my speakers list that I have currently is Ali, Dylan, Ahmed J, and then Reem. Ali? And Rowan, sorry.
So there was a discussion about the whereases and them being removed. The whereases in the motion, and this is very important. The second part is I think that it would just make it easier if we just remove the last "be it resolved."
There's already an amendment on this.
I know, I'm not making the amendment. I'm just making a recommendation. The reason why I'm saying this is that is the only part, and if we table it for more investigation by next council or whatever, I think that would work out. And then the first part would be the recommendation to not use Uber as much and all what came at the beginning. That would be it.
Thank you. Ahmed?
Yeah, I will leave now, but I will say something. It's like, we are like in a team, and if every time we point somebody because this is not as done properly or something, like we'll never like go forward. We'll always stay at the same point. So we should have trust between each member here, and yeah.
Thank you.
Have a good break. Point of information.
Yes.
I'm on the speakers list, but for the motion, right?
Yeah, for the original. So some of you put your names on the original speakers list, but the second there's an amendment, it restarts, but a new speakers list is formed. So currently the speakers list is Reem, Rowan, Kathy, and Omar. So, sorry.
What about me?
Sorry, you were on the original one.
Oh, I raised.
Sorry. Okay, so Dylan and Omar. Reem?
I'm on the amendment one.
Yep. Yeah, you're now.
Okay, I'm gonna speak something that's not related to the amendment.
Sorry?
Is that possible?
No, I can't hear what you said.
My point is not really related to the amendment.
It has to be related to the amendment. It's just you raise your placard again to speak. So you're still on the original one, so we can talk about the stuff after. But right now we're just on the amendment.
What's the amendment exactly?
The amendments, it's be it further resolved that the CSU credit card not be used at all until, in brackets, other than monthly subscription charges, a credit card usage policy is created by FinCom, which includes the amount and type of transactions. Rowan?
So I move to table the entire motion.
Yes?
I move to table the entire motion.
Alright, do we have a second? Reem? Okay, so there's a motion on the table to table. All those in favor, please raise your placards. 16, all those opposed? 0, and any abstentions? 1, 2. Okay.
No.
Oh, not abstention. Okay, sorry. Okay, so the motion has been tabled along with the whole speakers list. So Reem.
Lessons learned. So first of all, this is why we're here for. We're here to hold each other accountable and check where student money is going. But we can, like, from the conversation, we see that there are like unvoiced concerns from Omar mainly about how hard it is to use the procedure. That the procedure in place is not very convenient to him. So communication problems. And another thing is that I said before, and I appreciate like the good intention behind this motion, but for future as council, this is what we learned from this: do more investigation, get more people involved, start a conversation. It's very important to start a conversation with executives, with councilors, get people involved. Maybe they can see something that someone else missed up. So yeah, those are my 2 points. Just be a bit more thorough in your investigation and communication. There are clearly some communication problems that need to be addressed within the exec team. We could speak like more about this in the future. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
Brian?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't able to speak and table, so I did that instead, but...
Yeah, tables, no discussion.
Exactly, so I put myself back on the speaker's list afterwards. I just wanted to say that, like, yeah, I think a lot of people agree that this motion needed to, or like this discussion needed to happen. This allows us to come back to it in January with full information, and just that it is said, I trust that the executives will not be using the credit card for Uber until this has been resolved, even though I don't think any motion has specifically been drafted to say that. I think it kind of goes without saying. And I just wanted to make sure that it was in the minutes.
Thank you. Rory?
Yeah, it's just some of the things voiced around the table. I know it's not pleasant for us to go through these, like, quote, investigations and to waste our time, quote, waste our time at council doing this. But there's two main duties of you guys sitting here in this room. As a director of a corporation, duty number one is to manage. Duty number two is to grow. Duty number two is where we do our initiatives, our fun things, our projects. Duty number one is management. It's being a signing officer, signing checks. It's being on committees, making sure our policies are correct. It's making sure that the corporation is running efficiently and effectively. These things aren't pleasant, but if a student came to you and you're their representative and they said, where are you guys spending your money? You spent your money here, those are my student fees. Like, we have to just be wary of that this is, like, it is part of our job to do these investigations, whether it's fun or not. It's part of our legal obligation to do so. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Sally?
Well, I want to say something. First of all, guys, do you remember when all the candidates that were applying for the finance, all of them, the 4 of them, what did they say in common? They say, we need awareness. We're not reaching students. We need to do that. So why are we not doing that instead of investigating? I believe investigating is important, but the main reason for CSU, that's what I believe in, that we should bring the Concordia forward, have more awareness, and bring students forward and give them the, opportunities, facilities, and all these things, all the things that we can help them. We have a big budget, we can work on it instead of just like wasting 6 hours. Oh, you did that. And when it's just only one person, That's my opinion.
Thank you. Omar?
So just going back that, like, I recognize that this motion was done by a council for the first time. And yeah, we are all here to grow, but not at anyone's expense. And this puts in question my integrity. It makes my integrity a matter of public debate, which is, I doubt anyone's intention, and if that is, that it's very misleading. And I don't think it's done in good faith. I'm sure that this investigation from my part could be closed by tomorrow. Should not even be called an investigation, it's a clarification. Like, every single charge is here. This is the Excel sheet that was provided. This is the credit card that was provided. Here's a printout of every time I took an Uber. Like, it took me half an hour to do it had I been asked these questions, but I wasn't. I was asked, is the Uber linked to your credit card? Yes, it is. Did you use the Uber? Yes, I did. Nor did I try to dodge that question, nor did I say like it was used or this and that. So I have remained forthcoming and I will remain forthcoming, but it's not to put in question, bring to council and feel like, oh yeah, he's doing something wrong, because that's what seems to be happening every time. And that leads me to question if this is really being done to teach the executives, if it's really being done to allow them to grow, right? We're not fixing these mistakes because they've done and we don't want them to be repeated. We're fixing these mistakes as if we're out there to get someone.
Thank you. Kathy?
So just to touch up on Omar's point, we wasted an hour and a half when this could have been avoided the moment, because I think Veronica looked into financial because Sule resigned, right? You looked into the financials, you found discrepancies. You were
try to adjust the chair, please.
Yeah, Sophie was with her. Stop me at any time if I'm wrong. I believe that you guys worked 40 hours together a week. How hard was it to just knock to General Coordinator's office and just ask, these are the Ubers, it's linked to your account, what's going on? It could have avoided us an hour and a half just sitting here debating. And then furthermore, this whole motion, I don't know, it's my first council, but I'm just asking.
It's been tabled. It means that like it's
not going to be posted?
No, like it's not passed, so the provisions in the motion, council is not going to take action on them.
Okay.
That doesn't mean they can't take action on them in the future, it just means that for the moment it's been taken off.
But just in the future, when beginning this meeting, we said we're going to address each other respectively. and just saying the last sentence, be it further resolved that Omar Riaz be warned against inappropriate use of the CSU credit card. It's specifically targeting one person, and it's unacceptable because Veronica could have easily just, part of the team, she had the knowledge. I can't say, I don't believe that she did not have the knowledge that other people were also using the credit card, that she did not have the time to question her team member and notify her friend.
Thank you. Awatu?
Yeah, I guess everything I needed to say was said by the counselor. I would appreciate more cooperation between the executive team. I guess the executive team has every Wednesday a meeting where these questions could be brought up. It clearly hasn't been done. I would appreciate if any concerns as such be brought up in the executive team, because that will foster collaboration and cooperation between executives.
Thank you. Camille?
Yeah. It's not, my point is not to tackle this subject, like this motion specifically. It's more kind of like a comment on something that I've heard from Sally, basically. Yes.
Sorry, I didn't understand the last part you said.
Oh yeah, it's kind of like a comment on like what was said by Councillor Sally, basically. It's kind of like, I understand that like passing position and working on the university, like to my opinion, is the fun part. Like I'm here for that. Like I'm here to kind of like pass position and make sure that kind of like the student represented and like moving forward. But I mean, nobody enjoyed doing that right now. So like I feel like, but it's still relevant. And like yes, like some of the things that were said, like not said, but like the investigation was done. Maybe not so well, but like it's still something that has to be done. So yeah, so that's all.
Sorry, okay, there it is. Like as a procedural thing, moving forward, like, well, the sort of, like, people can make whatever complaints they have about like the presentation of it, but and this is just picking up on something that a counselor mentioned a couple, I guess, speakers list bits ago, a couple rungs up, is that like, I don't know, this isn't relating specifically to it, but just like naming an executive or whatever in a motion isn't like in and of itself necessarily a bad thing. It's not necessarily being, you know, accusatory or confrontational or whatever. Sometimes we do need to do that, and that's part of our jobs as essentially the more or less the employers of the executive. So that's really my thing. Just as a procedural thing, we shouldn't be necessarily wary of naming people in things if they've, you know, handed in a report and something's wrong with it, or if there's something that we need more information on. Like that in and of itself is not conflict, is not anything, and it's important for us to do it, to do our jobs right.
Thank you. Awatu? Yeah.
I mean, I know we need to end discussion here, but I just want to say naming executives and naming names of executives and motions, I highly appreciate that when that's done with true facts. When it's not done with true facts, when it's done with like 40% or even less than that of investigation, that thing is what I don't appreciate.
Thank you. Omar?
Just to address the naming of specific executives or even counselors or anyone in motions is not necessarily a problem, but it is a problem when it's not fact-checked correctly, because again, it could be seen by the student population, because we have such low engagement rates and such little reach, as something that's wrong with the CSU, or there's corruption within the CSU, or there's a large conflict within the CSU. That's what, given the situation we're in, it does matter if the names are used.
Okay, we're going around a little bit in circles. Eamon?
I guess want to clarify that I'm not talking about like, you know, the specific motion or anything. It's purely because somebody brought up, oh, naming people is this, and I just want to clarify that naming people isn't necessarily that. In this instance, naming people got kind of there. It doesn't have to be. It's important.
Thank you. Dylan?
I'm not sure it's called for the orders of the day.
Yes, it is.
Perfect.
Thank you. All right, so we are now on 8F, which is CSU Archives Agreement, and Omar, the floor is yours.
So the CSU Archives Agreement was attached with a little bit of context. Sir George William University and Loyola College also obviously had a student association, which goes back to 1941. So from 1941 to about until CUSA Corp was dissolved, which was about 2012, if I'm not wrong, there were a lot of archives that were held on to by Archives Concordia. And it's an archive service not only for Concordia, but for the Concordia community, which includes student groups or other groups, fee levies, and so on. So those have finally been by our archivist, who's done a great job. It was definitely not easy. It was almost 120 boxes to go through. Has finally gone through all of them. We've, make sure that we are in compliance with the law in terms of confidential documents. They have been destroyed. So everything is up to date. Now we have to transfer the documents to Archives Concordia, but they only take possession of the documents if there is a motion by the board of directors, or in this case, council of an organization. So all of the archives will be moved to Archives Concordia from the CSU. We remain, some of the things to mention in the agreement is that we remain the copyright. If someone was to do any research on the CSU, was to go back and look at what's been done, they'd be able to do that. We'd be notified every time. Obviously, it's not going to be for commercial purposes, so the copyright is just a formality. And that's pretty much it. So if this motion is approved, then we will go forward with it and finally close this project, quote unquote, that's been going on for at least 10 years now.
You didn't read the motion.
Oh, sorry. Be it resolved that CSU Council approve the agreement between Archives Concordia and the CSU.
Alright, seconded by Mustafa. You've already motivated.
Yeah, sorry.
It's okay. Alright, is there any speakers list? Kemi?
I just have a question on what kind of document this is, because it was not mentioned, or maybe I missed. Yeah.
So like I said, there's 140 boxes, and I would also encourage anyone to go and look at them if you want to know about the history, but it includes reports about previous projects that were done. There's a lot of meeting minutes that go back to like the 1970s. There's a lot of documents about our involvement with the CFS. There's a lot of documents from projects that council had created. For example, it talks about Breedaville. It goes back to the old Reggie's. It goes back to why CUSA Corp was created as a for-profit arm of the CSU and so on. So it has pretty much like the day-to-day operations of the CSU as they are now, or somewhat similar at the time. And the archives is a record of everything that happened during.
Yep.
Yeah, because I was kind of worried about the university kind of owning those documents. So I'm just wondering if there's any, chances that they might use it against the CSU at one point or another.
Yeah,
Yeah, so there's no controversial documents in there because everything has been vetted, so to speak. Okay. We've gone through everything, and it's like I also mentioned that it is a Concordia service, but they're, for example, guardians of these records, and it's more for historical purposes, and it's a service for the whole community. So I don't think that the administration will actively go through it. Even then, the documents are so old that it doesn't involve even the CSU.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, if there's no further discussion, we can move to a vote. So all those in favor of the CSU Archives Agreement motion, please raise your placards. 13, all those opposed? 0, and any abstentions? 1. Alright, so that carries. There's nothing else on CSU Archives. We can move on to question period and business arising. Yes, Ellie? No. Yeah, just give it a couple seconds. Omar?
I would like to make a motion from our discussion today. I think some of the problems that we've been having financially is because of the lack of clarity from as to how we record our expenses. So I would like to make a motion that says, be it resolved that the CSU Finance Coordinator prepare a document outlining line by line what each budget line is used for.
Okay, do we have a second? I would say. Your motivation?
It's just that I think once we have this document, which will then have to come to council, be approved by council, which would say like what the discretionary could be used for, what every single line could be used for, what conferences could be used for, what miscellaneous could be used for, how it could be used, who approves it, it's discretionary, non-discretionary, who's the approver, and I think that document will be something that everyone has to refer to, and they're not assumptions made by anyone else. It would include what's local travel for, right? If it's not for specific purposes, then it should go into discretionary. So it should answer those questions, and I think this will allow the CSU to be more transparent and accountable if we actually have something to refer to.
Okay, thank you. Ali?
I think I want to amend that after the financial coordinator does that it goes through policy first, so that they would check that everything that the financial coordinator has done is correct.
Okay, to go through
Yeah.
policy, or be
Yeah.
it further resolved that this goes through policy. Okay, do we have a second?
Yeah.
Do you want to motivate?
I think it's a great.
Does it have any opposition, or we can accept it as friendly? Perfect. Yes? Okay, yes, Omar?
No, that's right.
Okay, so is there any more discussion on the motion? Okay, so if not, we can move to a vote on the motion as amended. So all those in favor, please raise your placards. 14, all those opposed? 0, and any abstentions? 0. Okay, yes, Ali? Okay, first, does anyone have any announcements? Oh, yeah, you'll post in the group the motion for Corey?
It's already posted.
Oh, there we go.
Oh no, it's not. Sorry.
Okay, so does anyone have any announcements before we adjourn? Okay, in that case, Ali moves to adjourn, Jonathan seconds. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you for your patience.